Chapter 1928. Oh, I understand. Xiao Huan naturally knew the pain of having no money and could only smile apologetically. But after thinking for a moment he asked, since so many cultivators have come, do you have any clues? What clues? Huang Tianming said somewhat irritably, every one of them has their own reasons, but none of them can wake Xiang up. Moreover, Xiang is still a virgin. How can she be casually played around with? There is no reason. If that's the case, then I don't have any confidence. Xiao Hua said calmly, looking at the situation, I don't need to go to the Huang family's Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. It's better to return early. Hee, as fellow Xiao said, you are a guest from afar. Although my Huang family has declined, we still welcome open and honest cultivators like fellow Xiao. Today is the last day of my Huang family welcoming guests. From tomorrow onwards, Xiang's illness will be left to fate. We have worked hard for her for more than a year, so it can be considered that we have not let her down. Huang Tianming said with a smile. Moreover, our family head has also arranged a banquet tonight. Whether or not Xiang is cured, we can't treat you poorly. Actually, to be honest, fellow Xiao doesn't make a difference. Why don't you go and join in the fun? Fine, I'll nag you once. Xiao Hua heard Huang Tianming's helpless tone and could only nod. Senior Huang, this junior has a question to ask. Shui was done admiring the scenery. After looking around for a long time, she finally opened her mouth to ask. Oh, this is my junior sister, Shui. Xiao Hua smiled and held Shui's hand. Seeing Xiao Hua and Shui being so intimate, how could Huang Tianming not know? He quickly smiled and said, what does fellow Shui want to ask? There is no harm in asking. Junior wants to ask. Shui hesitated for a moment and said, Little Cabbage, is she from Tianmen Mountain's Huang family? What is her name? Without waiting for Shui to finish, Huang Tianming's expression suddenly changed and he interrupted. This is just a rumor, how can you believe it? Fellow Taoist Shui, you actually came to our Heavenly Gate Mountain to ask about the origin of a river fish. This is really blasphemous to our Huang clan. Shui, hearing Huang Tianming's words, Xiao Hua knew that Shui was definitely not the first person to ask. Just as Huang Tianming said, if you take a river fish and ask if it was transformed from the Huang family's ancestor, isn't that blasphemy? It would be strange if Huang Tianming wasn't angry. Yes, senior brother. Shui knew that it was inappropriate and hurriedly bowed and said, this junior was curious and caused senior Huang to misunderstand. Huang Tianming flicked his sleeves, looked at the sky, and said, it's getting late. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please. His tone was no longer as affectionate and familiar as before. Xiao Hua forced a smile and raised his hand. Fellow Taoist Huang, please. Chang Yulian and Chang Xueme, who were behind Shui, slightly pouted and gently stuck out their tongues. They rejoiced that it was Shui who asked. If it was them, they would have been expelled from the Heavenly Gate Mountain. At this time, it was dusk. The sky around the Heavenly Gate Mountain was filled with the glow of the setting sun. In the gradually darkening sky, countless dark clouds were slowly forming. Within the dark clouds, faint blue lightning was gradually forming. The Vermilion Bird Palace Hall was built in the central region of the Heavenly Gate Mountain. It was a land surrounded by several streams. It was vermilion red and was very dazzling in the midst of the emerald green. It was like a ball of fire, and with a single glance, one could tell that the Huang clan of the Heavenly Gate Mountain had an extraordinary origin. Huang Tianming led Xiao Hua and the others until they were a few dozen feet away from the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Then, he descended and stopped outside the vermilion red walls. He called over a Huang family disciple who was guarding the entrance and said to Xiao Hua, Fellow Taoist Xiao, please. I still have other trivial matters to attend to. If I may be so bold, I can't accompany you. Xiao Hua forced a smile and could only cup his hands. Fellow Taoist Huang, please do your own things. I will bid farewell to your clan head and will leave in a while. And there is no need for that. The banquet will begin in a while. It is also good for fellow Taoist Xiao to get to know a few more fellow Taoists. Huang Tianming cupped his hands and politely turned around to leave. Senior Xiao, please. The Huang clan disciple respectfully bowed and said. Xiaohua looked at Huang Tianming's back and knew that Shue's words had offended him. But why is he so wary of little cabbage? No matter what, it was something that happened 10,000 years ago. Is there a need to be like this? Xiaohua thought and followed the disciple into the courtyard. The courtyard was 100 feet wide and there were some strange rockery inside. There were also some rare tree species and a few spirit beasts. It was quite the style of a great clan. When Xiaohua entered the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. The interior of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall was a sea of vermilion red. The ground was covered in dilapidated scarlet lava. The four walls of the palace hall were engraved with countless runes. There were also too many paintings. The paintings were either scenes of ancient times, scenes of cultivators fighting, or scenes of hundreds of beasts fighting. The runes on the walls were like tadpoles that converged towards the top of the palace hall. As Xiaohua moved his gaze upwards, he saw that the tens of thousands of runes had actually converged into a picture of a vermilion bird. Oh my, Xiaohua was inwardly astonished. The Huang clan of Heavenly Gate Mountain probably has the bloodline of the vermilion bird true spirit. This extravagance isn't inferior to an ordinary cultivation sect. But looking at this Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, it is just as Huang Tianming said. It should be coveted by other cultivation sections. I really can't accept their kindness so easily. Senior Xiao, this way please. Seeing Xiaohua's footsteps slightly stagnate, the Huang clan disciple's heart also rose with pride. However, his face was still respectful as he raised his hand and indicated for Xiaohua to sit inside the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. After Xiaohua finished looking at the layout of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, he once again looked at the entire hall. He shockingly discovered that within the enormous Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, there were already dozens of white jade tables placed there. Around each table, there were a few cultivators sitting. These cultivators were either foundation establishment or qi refinement cultivators. However, qi refinement cultivators were still the majority. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please. In the depths of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, Huang Tianle sat at the head seat. Near him, there were a few early-stage foundation establishment cultivators accompanying him. When he saw Xiaohua enter, he pointed to a place on his left that was slightly closer to him. Hearing Huang Tianle's greeting, all the cultivators in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall looked toward Xiaohua. Dozens of divine senses also swept over. Their gazes were not without vigilance. The slightly noisy Vermilion Bird Palace Hall also became cold and silent. Xiaohua looked at the place Huang Tianle pointed to. He didn't show off too much, he just cupped his hands and said, "Many thanks, Huang clan head. This little one's cultivation is insufficient, it's better for me to casually sit." Hehe, this is Mo Cloud Stronghold's guest cultivator, his name is Xiaohua. Huang Tianle smiled and introduced him to the early-stage foundation establishment cultivators next to him. He really is young and promising. When everyone heard this, they all withdrew their divine senses and said uninterestedly, Mo Cloud Stronghold actually also has a foundation establishment guest cultivator, it's not easy. Xiaohua knew that these foundation-building cultivators were hostile towards him, and he wasn't interested in whatever magic tool they were looking for. He looked around and saw that there were a few empty spots at the end of the table where the foundation-building cultivators were seated. He then walked over to them. When everyone saw that Xiaohua was very tactful, they became even more enraptured. Once again talking about the previous topic, the atmosphere in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall slowly became lively again. Huang Tianle also retracted his attention and dealt with the nearby cultivators. When Xiaohua sat down, Shui and the others also sat around Xiaohua. Chang Lihao and the others also sat very upright. They were the representatives of Mo Cloud Stronghold. They couldn't lose face for the people of Mo Cloud Stronghold. So its fellow Taoist Xiao, an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator sitting above Xiaohua, cupped his hands and said, "I wonder when fellow Taoist Xiao became a guest cultivator of Mo Cloud Stronghold?" Xiaohua raised his head and looked at the stout-looking cultivator. he smiled and said, "What is fellow Taoist's name? Which sect do you belong to?" "Hehe, I am a guest cultivator of Luan Shi's Ma clan. My name is Moon Moat," the cultivator said with a bit of pride. "Luan Shi's Ma clan?" Xiao Hua slightly frowned. He seemed to have some recollection. After thinking for a moment, he immediately understood. When he entered Imperial Thunder Sect, there seemed to be an aura-refining disciple named Ma Miaoming who seemed to be from some Luan Shi's Ma clan. However, after so many years, Xiao Hua basically forgot. Seeing that Xiao Hua's face didn't have the respect he expected, Moon Moat unhappily asked, "So, could it be that the guest cultivator of Mo Cloud Stronghold has never heard of Luan Shi's Ma clan?" Moon Moat? Xiao Hua smiled inwardly for no reason. This name was indeed similar to Moon Moat. However, looking at Moon Moat's serious appearance, he smiled apologetically and said, "Fellow Taoist Moon Moat knows that this Xiao is ignorant and inexperienced. I was just invited as a guest cultivator by Mo Cloud Stronghold and my head was filled with happiness. I'm still not too familiar with the situation in the country of Shi. I've made fellow Taoist Moon Moat laugh." "The country of Shi?" Moon Moat stared blankly. His face contained a faint sneer as he said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, could it be that you haven't been to the country of Lien and the country of Meng?" I'm really ashamed. It's exactly as fellow Taoist said. This time, this one brought the little junior brothers of Mo Cloud Stronghold to work because I wanted to travel more." Xiao Hua's face was filled with fear, as if someone had seen through his thoughts. Seeing such a short-sighted fellow Taoist, Moon Moat's eyes unconsciously revealed pride. He pointed his finger and said, "Could it be? Fellow Taoist Xiao doesn't even know the fellow Taoists sitting above?" Xiao Hua's gaze swept over. Indeed, he really didn't know any of them. He could only smile bitterly and said, "This one really doesn't know any of them. Fellow Taoist Moon Moat, please teach me." "And, no problem." Moon Moat stroked the sparse beard on his chin and said like a teacher, "Look at the cultivator on the left of fellow Taoist Huang. That lean and tall one is our country of Shi's famous sect, Flowing Light Sect's Su Mingyu. This person is skilled in water magic. Then look at the one on fellow Taoist Huang's right. The one with a sallow face is also an extraordinary cultivator. He is fellow Taoist Xie Yujiang's fellow Taoist Xie Yujiang. Counting down from fellow Taoist Su Mingyu, there are fellow Taoist Chong Sikang of River Jade Sect, fellow Taoist Zhu Feng of Qi Ming Sect, fellow Taoist Lan Ping of Mulan Mountain. These are all from big sections. And, looking at fellow Taoist Xie Yujiang, fellow Taoist Qi Ming of Chu River Sect, fellow Taoist Zhu Huifeng of Shuiyu Mountain, fellow Taoist Li Mingzhu of Shuiyu Mountain. Soon after, he pointed to the cultivators behind him and said with a smile, "Behind them are the cultivators or guests of aristocratic families like yours and mine. The most famous ones are, of course, Xushan's Chu clan's Chu Yuchang, Yunhao's Yun Mo, Mingfeng's Zhang Wuxing, Yipu's Jing clan's Jing Lily and Xuanwei's Xiao clan's Xiao Fanling. As for the others, they're just general names. There's no need for this old man to talk about them." Chapter 1929. Then, Yuchuan waved his hand again and said, "The people from the other families are all nameless. I'm afraid I don't know either. I presume fellow Xiao doesn't have any interest in knowing." That's true." Xiao Hua followed Yuchuan's finger and looked at the many cultivators with different appearances. He felt it was very novel. This kind of gathering of foundation establishment cultivators, to be honest, was his first time. Thinking that he would encounter many such things in the future, he listened very carefully. When Yuchuan waved his hand, Xiao Hua immediately knew that Yuchuan was talking about all Qi refinement cultivators, not foundation establishment cultivators. When Chang Lihao and the others heard this, their faces turned slightly red. If it wasn't for Xiao Hua, they would be nameless as Yuchuan said. But even so, Mo Cloud Village was really nameless in the country of Shi. It couldn't even compare to Misty Mountain. In this kind of occasion, it could only be nameless. "Oh right, fellow you," Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said in a low voice, "I was also sent out by the family head at the last minute. There are many things I don't know. And let me tell fellow you something. This is my first time representing Mo Cloud Village. I just came to see and have no plans. So I want to ask fellow Taoist, what magic tool did Tianmen Mountain's Huang family take out? How did it attract the experts of a cultivation sect like Lumen sect? Then he looked around. And so many people from cultivation families came. It's really out of my expectations. Is that so? Yu Chuan glanced at Xiao Hua with a, "You want to deceive me? You want to pry for information?" expression and said with a smile, "Since fellow Taoist Xiao can come, how can you not have such thoughts? A handy magic tool for you and me is like adding wings to a tiger." Hee. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and said, "There are many experts in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. I know my limits. Forget it. If fellow you doesn't want to say it, then don't say it. Fellow Taoist Huang will say it in a while." Hee. Fellow Taoist Xiao is wrong. Yu Chuan saw that Xiao Hua didn't ask any more and lost interest. He chuckled and said, "This kind of thing, everyone knows it in their hearts. How can fellow Taoist Huang say it on the spot? First, he will lose face. Second, it will embarrass the fellow who got the magic tool. No matter what, Taoist you still knows." Xiao Hua was bored, so he casually told Yu Chuan, "That's natural. This Yu has met the Huang family's housekeeper, Huang Tianming. When I came here the other day, I heard him vaguely reveal some information." Yu Qian said proudly, "Please teach me, fellow Taoist Yu." Xiao Hua's face was filled with longing. Yu Qian transmitted his voice, "This matter is rather secretive. I'll only tell fellow Taoist Xiao alone. Don't spread it out." "Don't worry, this Xiao only knows fellow Taoist Yu in this hall. Who do you want this Xiao to tell?" Xiao Hua smiled embarrassedly. "Oh well, who asked I to be fated with Taoist Xiao?" Yu Qian smiled and said, "I wonder if Taoist Xiao knows about the glory of Tianmen Mountain's Huang family?" Xiao Hua was stunned. He thought for a moment and could only smile bitterly. "I really don't know. I've made a fool of myself in front of fellow Taoist Yu. You don't even know this?" Yu Qian said in astonishment. But looking at Xiao Hua's expression that didn't seem to be fake, he shook his head. "Young man, you need to add more knowledge about Xiaoyu continent's cultivation. Don't just put your energy into cultivation." "Yes, this one understands." Xiao Hua nodded his head very sincerely. He also read a lot of books in Imperial Thunder sect. But there were very few records about aristocratic families and the like. These things could only be obtained by traveling on one's own. "Do you know about spirit stones?" Yu Qian suddenly asked. "Spirit stones?" Xiao Hua was startled. "This one naturally knows. No matter what, this one is still a foundation establishment cultivator. How could I not know about spirit stones?" Hee. Then fellow Taoist Xiao, have you ever thought about where spirit stones come from?" Yu Qian looked at Xiao Hua with a playful smile, as if he was looking at a country bumpkin. Xiao Hua suddenly felt that what he knew was really too little. But some memories entered Xiao Hua's mind. "Spirit stone mine." Xiao Hua blurted out. Yu Qian's eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment. Soon after, he nodded and said, "Speaking of spirit stone mine, even if this one doesn't say anything, fellow Taoist Xiao will definitely remember something." This one understands." Xiao Hua's heart surged with endless waves. "That's right, why have I never thought about the origin of spirit stones? These spirit stones were naturally harvested from underground spirit stone veins. Naturally, there were also spirit stone veins on the Daybreak continent, which would inevitably be controlled by the big cultivation sections. Perhaps the Imperial Thunder sect had their own spirit stone veins. And Tianmen Mountain's Huang clan was so arrogant before. They didn't put cultivation sects in their eyes. What else could they rely on? Isn't it just a spirit stone mine?" Just as fellow Taoist Xiao thought, several tens of thousands of years ago, when Tianmen Mountain's Huang clan was at their peak, they controlled this fire spirit stone mine. They were very rich. Yu Qian said with a sinister smile, "This kind of rich clan, you say, even if they have declined, how can the magic tools that Huang Tianle took out for his own granddaughter be inferior?" "This one understands." Xiao Hua was silent. "Even if the quality is not good, It has already flowed out of the Huang clan these past few years. To be able to stay in the Huang clan's hands, it must be a good quality magic tool. Who knows, it might even be comparable to a low-grade magic tool. Indeed. Yu Qian nodded, listening to Huang Tianming's words, and Yu Qian still wanted to say it. But at this moment, Huang Tianming stood up, coughed twice, and said clearly, "Fellow Taoists, this one has been somewhat slow these past few days. Here, this one apologizes to everyone." As he spoke, he cupped his hands towards everyone. Fellow Taoist Huang is too courteous. Next to Huang Tianle, Limitless Sex Su Mingyu said with a smile, "In these past few days, this one has been eating and sleeping in the Huang clan. Even my cultivation has improved. If it's an apology, this one has to apologize first." Fellow Taoist Su is right. On the other side, Chu River Sex Qiming also said with a smile, "We haven't even done anything yet, and we've already received such hospitality from fellow Taoist Huang. What can we complain about?" Everyone in the Vermilion Bird Palace hall chimed in. This is all due to fellow Taoists giving this one face. Huang Tianle still said with a deadpan expression, "How can this one not know?" However, in the past year that my granddaughter has been ill, many capable people and crafty people have come, but no one has been able to cure Xiang Er's illness. This old man's mood is also extremely bad. Therefore, this old man made up his mind a month ago. This time, I've invited all the experts I know in the country of Xi. If any fellow Taoist is able to cure Xiang Er's illness, then that person will be the benefactor of my Huang clan and also Xiang Er's good fortune. If no fellow Taoist can see the clues, this one still has to thank fellow Taoists for coming all the way here and placing great importance on my Huang clan's matters. This is also Xiang Er's fate, and this one does not dare to force it. Chapter 1930. There are many capable people in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Moreover, your granddaughter's fortune is profound. She will definitely have the ending that fellow Taoist Huang hopes for. Li Mingzhu of Shuiyu Mountain spoke with a voice like an oriole. Many thanks for fellow Taoist Li's good intentions. Huang Tianle smiled and waved his hand. The jade cup on the table flew up and Huang Tianle easily caught it. He raised it forward and said, "Come, I, Huang Tianle, represent the Huang clan of Tianmen Mountain to toast everyone with a cup of spirit wine. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Huang." Everyone stood up and raised their cups with a smile. Of course, Xiaohua also stood up and frowned as he looked at the sparkling clear wine in the cup. He didn't like spirit wine, and when he saw Huang Tianle smile, it was clearly filled with bitterness. Under these circumstances, no matter how delicious the spirit wine was, Xiaohua didn't have the heart to drink it. Thus, he waved his hand and sent the wine cup into the space. Fortunately, everyone was savoring the taste of the Huang family's spirit wine, so no one paid attention to Xiaohua. Otherwise, this kind of situation where the wine cup disappeared after tasting the wine would be laughable. After everyone finished drinking, Huang Tianle pointed his finger again and a wisp of dark green spirit wine poured into the wine cup from the jug. "Everyone, my Tianmen Mountain hasn't been so lively for a long time. Alas, unfortunately, it's not a happy occasion. However, since everyone came to my Huang clan, you are still my Huang clan's friends. In the future, if you need my Huang clan's help, please send a message. Come, for the sake of giving my Huang clan face, I thank everyone." While speaking, everyone drank the second cup in one gulp. Fellow Taoist Huang, Chu family's Chu Yuchang smiled and said, "The spirit wine of the Huang clan is indeed delicious. Within the coldness, there is a trace of heat. It's something that our families can't compare to." Chu Yuchang is also very willing to drink a few more cups. However, if fellow Taoist Huang toasts left and right like this, I'm afraid Chu will be drunk in a while and won't have the chance to treat your granddaughter. Fellow Taoist Chu is joking. A bitter smile appeared on Huang Tianle's face. I already knew fellow Taoist Crooked Soul's alcohol tolerance, so how could he have gotten drunk? Come, let this Huang propose a third toast to fellow Taoists. I beg the heavens to protect our cultivation families. Don't let the disciples of other families, and the disciples of other sects, encounter such strange things again? Well, since Huang Tianle had said so, no one could not help but raise their glasses. Moreover, everyone could see that Huang Tianle was drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Ha, fellow Taoist, Huang is indeed in a good mood. You're still in the mood to drink wine with such a big family matter. A slightly hoarse voice rang out. It actually came from outside the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Which fellow Taoist? Huang Tianle exclaimed in surprise. However, when he saw the short, fat and pockmarked Middle Foundation Establishment cultivator enter, his expression changed. What? Fellow Taoist Huang, do you not welcome me? The Foundation Establishment cultivator was wearing a suit of armor. Behind him, there were two other cultivators wearing the same suit of armor. Surprisingly, they were also early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators. Hehe, so it's fellow Taoist Shang Qinghe from Haoming City. I wonder if fellow Taoist Shang has come by himself or on behalf of Haoming City. Huang Tianle asked with an indescribable smile as he held the wine cup in his hand, unable to drink any more. He stared at the cultivator's footsteps and asked, "Is there a difference?" Shang Qinghe did not directly answer. Instead, he walked to the front of the hall and swept his gaze across the hall. Finally, his gaze landed on a cultivation family's table not far from Huang Tianle's. He stared at the Foundation Establishment cultivator from that family and walked straight over. Under his gaze, a trace of fear flashed through the Foundation Establishment cultivator's eyes. He slowly stood up as Shang Qinghe walked. "Fellow Taoist, you don't mind if I sit in your seat, do you?" Shang Qinghe said coldly. Just as the Foundation Establishment cultivator hesitated, the two early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators behind Shang Qinghe took a step forward with a whoosh. There was no pressure, and the two of them didn't even look at the cultivator. However, the two cultivators exuded a murderous aura and a bloody aura. As a result, the cultivator trembled and involuntarily took half a step back. However, as soon as he took a step back, he came to his senses. Even so, he couldn't move forward even if he wanted to. "Fellow Taoist Lu Fan. Hehe, please sit here." Huang Tianle quickly smiled and pointed at a seat closer to him. That seat was occupied by a Foundation Establishment cultivator and two aura-refining disciples, so there was still room for them to sit next to the table. No need, Lu Fan's expression changed a few times. He was truly embarrassed. He swung his sleeves and turned to leave. The several aura-refining disciples beside him also stood up in a hurry and wanted to leave. "Lu family from Chanxi. What's wrong? Fellow Taoist Lu, do you have a problem with my arrival? Or, do you have a problem with me taking your seat?" Shang Qinghe didn't sit down but said coldly to Lu Fan. "What? Fellow Taoist Shang, this is Tianmen Mountain, not Haoming City. I don't need to tell you, the captain of the city guards, what do I want to do?" Although Lu Fan was timid, he couldn't help but retort. Of course I can only manage the order of Haoming City. The order of Tianmen Mountain definitely doesn't need me." Shang Qinghe laughed. "However, you want to leave as soon as I arrive. Isn't that not giving me face?" Lu Fan gritted his teeth and looked at the people in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. These people had different expressions in their eyes. Some were pitiful, some were lucky, and some were mocking. I suddenly remembered, there's still an important thing I haven't done. Lu Fan cupped his hands and smiled at Huang Tianle. "Therefore I have to leave first, fellow Taoists." But just as Lu Fan turned around and cupped his hands to gesture to the cultivators in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, a cold light flashed in Shang Qinghe's eyes. He winked at the two city guards beside him. The cultivator on the left rubbed his hands, and a series of confinement spells were thrown at Lu Fan. "What are you doing?" Lu Fan certainly paid attention to the movements of Shang Qinghe and the other two. Seeing that the opponent actually launched a sneak attack, he was shocked. He hurriedly waved his hands and wanted to cast a spell. However, just as he activated his dermic powers, the cultivator to the right of Shang Qinghe slapped his hand, and a silver saber that was 3 feet long appeared in his hand. He swung it, and there was a flash of light on the saber that was half a foot long as it sliced through Lu Fan's neck. Poor Lu Fan. He was already trembling with fear. Seeing that someone had launched a sneak attack on him, he hurriedly counterattacked. But he didn't expect that the second city guard would actually kill him. Moreover, these two city guards cooperated well. Even Xiao Hua in the distance was surprised, so how could he dodge? With a pu sound, a mouthful of hot blood spurted out from Lu Fan's decapitated neck and sprayed out over 2 feet for no reason. His head, which had died with his eyes wide open, also fell onto the crimson-red ground of the Vermilion Bird Palace. Fellow Taoist Shang, what are you doing? Huang Tianle was furious. He jumped out and asked, Fellow Taoist Lu Fan is an honored guest invited by my Tianmen Mountain. How can you casually kill him in front of me? 2 idiots, Shang Qinghe ignored Huang Tianle and swung his hands. With 2 crisp pa-pa sounds, he slapped the faces of the 2 early-stage Foundation establishment city guards. Who told you to attack? Didn't you see that the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall is filled with early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators and qi refinement cultivators? Who can pose a threat to me? Your actions make me have to explain myself to fellow Taoist Huang? Yes, we know our mistake. The 2 city guards' expressions didn't change at all. They turned to Huang Tianle and said, Fellow Taoist Huang, we were eager to protect our master. We acted hastily and caused trouble. We will take responsibility for this matter. If fellow Taoist Huang wants to punish us, we are willing to accept our punishment. When Huang Tianle saw this, he was so angry that his whole body trembled. However, how could he punish these 2 city guards? Even if they killed people in Tianmen Mountain, he didn't have the right to kill the 2 city guards. Even if he could kill the 2 city guards, the mastermind wasn't these 2 people. He had offended Haoming City for no reason. Fellow Taoists, you are so reckless. You are really letting down the city guards. Although I don't have the right to punish you, but please give me your tokens. I will go to Haoming City in the future to see Taoist Master Yao Hong and ask him to uphold justice. Huang Tianle said helplessly. The 2 city guards said in unison, we can leave our lives behind, but we can't leave our tokens behind. Please forgive us, fellow Taoist Huang. Fellow Taoist Huang, the tokens of the city guards of Haoming City are proof of identity. If you take the tokens and do something evil, how can I explain it to the city lord? Shang Qinghe said coldly, I can let you punish these 2 city guards, but I can't give you my tokens. Huang Tianle thought for a moment and sighed, forget it. Fellow Taoists are witnesses to this matter. I am not afraid that Haoming City will deny it. Alas, the Lu family of Chanxi will wait for this matter. I will personally go and explain it to them. Then, Huang Tianle waved his sleeves and returned to his seat. Several disciples of the Huang family came up and cleaned up Lu Fan's corpse. Then, they took the qi refinement disciples of the Lu family away and replaced the spirit wine and other things on the table. Come, fellow Taoist Huang, let me offer you a toast. Shang Qinghe sat down and waved his hand naturally. The jade cup flew up and he said with a smile. The 2 early-stage Foundation establishment city guards stood behind Shang Qinghe with their hands behind their backs. Fellow Taoist Shang, do you have anything else to say after drinking this wine? Huang Tianle looked at the wine cup in front of him and said with a fake smile. Of course, how can I not say anything when I am here? Shang Qinghe didn't care and said with a smile. In that case, fellow Taoist Shang, please wait. I haven't finished my 3rd toast yet. Huang Tianle said. Is that so? Shang Qinghe released his divine sense and quickly scanned everyone in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. He didn't even let Xiao Hua go. However, since Xiao Hua was sitting far away and was an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, and the cultivators around him were all 10th-stage qi refinement disciples except for Xue Xue, why would Shang Qinghe take him seriously? Chapter 1931. I haven't finished my toast yet. Who dares to disturb my mood? Shang Qinghe said coldly. Huang Tianle's wine cup was raised in his hand awkwardly. He sighed and drank it in one gulp. I'll drink this cup myself. However, what I said earlier still stands. Ha, Shang Qinghe laughed and said, I'm late. I wonder what fellow Taoist Huang is talking about? It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with fellow Taoist Shang at all. Huang Tianle put down the wine cup and asked again, fellow Taoist Shang seems to have not answered my question yet. What question? Is it more important than my toast? Shang Qinghe asked curiously. Huang Tianle was not annoyed. He only chuckled and said, I'm just asking fellow Taoist Shang. Are you here to represent Haoming City? Or are you here on your own? What's the difference? Shang Qinghe stopped drinking the wine and placed it on the table. He smiled and said, haven't I already answered this question? Of course there's a difference. Huang Tianle said unrelentingly, please answer, fellow Taoist Shang. So what if I am? So what if I'm not? Shang Qinghe still did not answer. If you're here to represent Haoming City, then please get up. Don't sit down. My answer is the same as before. I will definitely not agree to Haoming City's conditions. Huang Tianle said calmly, if fellow Taoist Shang is not here to represent Haoming City, then sit down and listen to my arrangements like the other fellow Taoists. Shang Qinghe did not get up or answer. He only raised his wine cup and tasted it carefully. All right, Huang Tianle clapped and said, since fellow Taoist Shang is not getting up, it means that fellow Taoist Shang is not here to represent Haoming City. I'm relieved. Hearing this, Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Shang Qinghe, who was sitting steadily behind the table, and the two city guards who looked like clay sculptures, with interest. Fellow Taoists. Huang Tianle raised his voice and was about to speak when he heard Shang Qinghe clapping his hands and said, fellow Taoist Huang, I have something to say. Oh, fellow Shang, please go ahead. Huang Tianle was slightly taken aback, but he still replied with a smile. I heard that fellow Taoist Huang's granddaughter had some problems with her cultivation, and she still hasn't recovered after more than a year. That's why I'm here to see if I can help fellow Taoist Huang. Shang Qinghe said with a smile. Thank you for your kind intentions, fellow Shang. There are many fellow Taoists in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall who are as eager as fellow Shang. Fellow Shang, please wait for a moment. Huang Tianle quickly smiled apologetically. Really? These little aura refinement brats? Shang Qinghe's gaze shifted as he sneered, if they can contribute, why would they need us foundation establishment cultivators? Furthermore, from what I've seen, all the fellow Taoists in the early stage of foundation establishment are present. I'm afraid none of them will be of any use. What do you mean, fellow Taoist Shang? Huang Tianle frowned and asked. If I don't take a look first, who would dare to look? Shang Qinghe's voice wasn't loud, but it shook the ears of every cultivator. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Huang Tianle stared at Shang Qinghe. Shang Qinghe calmly pointed his finger, and the wine in the jade pot poured into his mouth like a thin thread. He didn't take Huang Tianle's gaze seriously at all. Since fellow Taoist Shang values Tianmen Mountain's reputation so much, fellow Taoist Huang, let fellow Taoist Shang be the first to treat. We're just thinking the same as fellow Taoist Shang. As long as fellow Taoist Shang can cure the illness, we're more than happy to be treated here by fellow Taoist Huang. Su Mingyu from the Lumen sect quickly said with a smile when he saw the strange scene. That's right, that's right. Several cultivators from other cultivation sects also echoed. Their cultivation was not as good as Shang Qinghe's, but they were not afraid of Shang Qinghe because of their sections. However, when they saw Shang Qinghe kill the chicken to scare the monkey as soon as he entered the door, they were also surprised. Seeing that Shang Qinghe actually wanted to be the first to treat Huang Mingxiang's illness, their hearts skipped a beat. They felt that Huang Mingxiang's illness was not as simple as they thought. In that case, who would be willing to take the lead? Fine, Huang Tianle said with a smile. Since fellow Taoist Shang thinks so highly of me, what's wrong with letting fellow Taoist Shang be the first to treat? Fellow Taoist Huang, why didn't you say so earlier? Shang Qinghe stood up and clapped his hands. However, I'm a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation establishment. The price for letting me do it is not small. Huang Tianle's expression changed slightly, but then he forced a smile and said, why? Before fellow Taoist Shang came to my Tianmen Mountain, didn't you know about the reward offered by my Tianmen Mountain? Huh? Is the life of your female cultivator more important? Or is the magic weapon more important? Huang Tianle said with a smile, since fellow Taoist Huang loves your granddaughter and can take out a precious magic weapon, then you must be able to take out other things as well. Huang Tianle flicked his sleeves and said, my Tianmen Mountain's Huang family has declined to this extent. If we can still take out other things, will the cultivators sitting here tolerate fellow Taoist Shang's wanton humiliation? Fellow Taoist Shang, don't say any more. I will definitely not agree to the conditions offered by your Haoming city. Fellow Taoist Huang, don't be anxious. Su Mingyu advised. Fellow Taoist Shang has already said that he doesn't represent Haoming city. Let's see what his conditions are like. If it's possible and Meng Xiang can be cured, why wouldn't fellow Taoist Huang do it? Huang Tianle did not seem to care about Su Mingyu's face. He snorted coldly and looked at the top of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Ha, well said, fellow Taoist Su. Shang Qinghe narrowed his eyes and said, what magic weapon did you take out? It's just to send these Qi refinement brats away. How can I take a fancy to it? They take action. I hope fellow Taoist Huang will take out your sex Vermilion Bird Ring. What? Vermilion Bird Ring? Huang Tianle looked down from the top of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall in surprise and looked at Shang Qinghe with amusement. Fellow Taoist Shang's appetite is not ordinary. Although you didn't directly ask my Huang family to give up Tianmen Mountain like last time, you immediately set your eyes on my Huang family's ancestral magic weapon. Hee, this is really beyond my expectations. Hee, there are still many things beyond fellow Taoist Huang's expectations. Fellow Taoist Huang, don't be anxious. Take your time and watch. Shang Qinghe sneered and said, if fellow Taoist Huang doesn't want Huang Mingxiang to die young, take out the Vermilion Bird Ring. I guarantee that I will wake her up. Damn it, it's really this guy surnamed Shang's doing. At this point, even Xiao Hua, who had just arrived at Tianmen Mountain, understood what was going on. Fellow Taoist Shang. However, Huang Tianle still shook his head and said, it's not that I don't want to promise you. Fellow Taoist, don't you know? My Huang family's Vermilion Bird Ring has long been lost. Where do you want me to take it back? Ta lost? That's your Huang family's ancestral magic weapon. How could it be lost just like that? Shang Qinghe sneered and said, I received accurate information that the Vermilion Bird Ring is in your Huang family's possession. If fellow Taoist Huang has the heart, why don't you make a blood oath and take a look? Chapter 1932. Blood Oath. Huang Tianle laughed from extreme anger. If I were to make a blood oath here, how would I have the face to see fellow cultivators in the future? Since you don't dare to make a blood oath, then the Vermilion Bird Ring will belong to your Huang clan. Shang Qinghe said slowly. Fellow Taoist Shang, Huang Tianle waved his sleeve. Xiang Er is my granddaughter, whether I treat her or not is my business. Fellow Taoist Shang's conditions are too harsh, I can't agree, please do as you please. Ha, Shang Qinghe laughed. I'm already here. You want me to leave just because you say so? How could it be so simple? What do you want? Huang Tianle pulled his face and asked coldly. If you want me to treat her, I'll treat her. If you don't want me to treat her, I'll treat her. Shang Qinghe took a few steps forward and said, you just need to prepare the Vermilion Bird Ring. Ha, fellow Taoist Shang, you're not here to treat her, right? You're here to take my life, right? Huang Tianle laughed. That's right. It's not just yours. The lives of dozens of cultivator sects and families in the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall are in your hands. Even if you leave them alive, they won't. Tell me, can your Sky Gate Mountains still exist in the Dawn Rain continent? Shang Qinghe sneered. Huang Tianle was so angry that his body trembled again. He pointed his finger at Shang Qinghe and didn't know what to say. Many people in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall were shocked. Most of them stood up and looked at Shang Qinghe in horror. The Chang siblings' faces were also ashen. They stood up while trembling. Xiao Hua and Xue Xue sat steadily. Fellow Taoists, Huang Tianle waved his sleeve and laughed. You are my Sky Gate Mountain's honored guests. Even if I have to risk my life, I'll guarantee your safety. Don't panic. Chang Lihao and the others saw Xiaohua's calmness at this moment. Then, they thought of everything that happened in the Cold River house and quickly sat down. However, they got closer to Xiaohua. Hee, I'd like to see how you'll protect their lives. Shang Qinghe clapped his hand and a 3-foot-long saber appeared in his hand. However, this saber was emitting a faint golden brilliance. Don't force me, fellow Taoist Shang. Huang Tianle said through gritted teeth. Did I force you? I'm just here to help fellow Taoist Huang. Shang Qinghe said innocently. Huang Tianle clapped his hands, and a small, lifelike vermilion bird statue appeared. He activated his mana, and the statue emitted a vermilion glow. In an instant, the glow was blinding. Go! Hearing Huang Tianle's soft reprimand, the vermilion bird within the brilliance began to flap its wings. Dozens of rays of brilliance flew out from the center and shot towards the 4 walls of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Bang! A burst of fire sounded. From the 4 walls of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, clusters of flames appeared. Those flames quickly spread upwards along the walls that were engraved with runes. When they reached the top of the palace hall, all of the flames began to revolve around the top of the palace hall. The runes on the walls moved upwards layer by layer, and the vermilion bird formed by the runes seemed to be shaking its feathers. Following the emergence of the flames, the windows and doors of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall that were previously exposed were now sealed. The entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall became a cluster of flames. Squeak! Although it wasn't as clear as Xiaohua's phoenix celestial body, it was still soul-shaking. A vermilion bird formed by flames flew out from the top of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. An incomparably huge aura comparable to that of a nascent soul realm cultivator was emitted from the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. However, the face of the vermilion bird formed by flames wasn't clear. Even its eyes were closed. Fellow Taoist Shang, you forced me to do this. Huang Tianle's face was deathly pale, and his body was trembling slightly. Shang Qinghe didn't seem to care about the formation of the vermilion bird at all. He seemed to have a card up his sleeve as he sneered, the Huang family of Tianmen Mountain has always been struggling on the verge of death. Is it all because of the vermilion bird flame array of Tianmen Mountain? It's a pity that this formation, which is said to be able to kill even a nascent soul stage cultivator, has shocked the entire Dawn Rain continent. However, I know that this formation has long lost its effectiveness. What the Huang family's master can activate is merely a facade that lives up to its name. Is that so? Hearing Shang Qinghe's words, all of the cultivators under the vermilion bird's aura were aghast. Shang Qinghe was right. Even the city lord of Haoming City only came to negotiate terms. If the terms couldn't be reached, he would leave. He didn't want to be entangled with Tianmen Mountain at all. This vermilion bird flame array was a big key, and Shang Qinghe was actually inside it. He was so relaxed that he didn't care about it at all. How did you know? Huang Tianle's face became even paler. His eyes flashed with determination as he asked coldly. You don't need to know how I know. Shang Qinghe laughed loudly. Since I dared to enter the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall and am not afraid of being sealed, I naturally have my own confidence. So, fellow Taoist Shang doesn't plan to retreat? Huang Tianle said again, if fellow Taoist Shang retreats now, I'll pretend that this never happened at all. As long as fellow Taoist Huang takes out the vermilion bird ring, I'll immediately turn around. Shang Qinghe still didn't give in. Okay, then I'll let you have a taste of Tianmen Mountain's vermilion bird great array that has lost its effectiveness. Huang Tianle spat a mouthful of blood essence onto the vermilion bird statue in his hand. It shook with difficulty. The vermilion bird in the ball of light flapped its wings. The 100-foot-tall vermilion bird flame also flapped its wings and rushed toward Shang Qinghe. The swaying flame rushed toward Shang Qinghe's face with its monstrous aura, suppressing Shang Qinghe's power. However, Shang Qinghe patted his forehead and released the power of a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator. He was actually able to barely resist it. Under the activation of his magic power, not only did the protective yellow talisman and other things shine, but a long faint shadow also appeared on the golden saber in his hand. The vermilion bird flame flew past Huang Tianle's head and was about to rush towards Shang Qinghe. However, Huang Tianle let out a long roar and his entire body suddenly shook. A vermilion bird dharma body that was 3 feet in size rushed out from his body. Ah? Vermilion bird dharma body? Xiao Hua stared blankly for a moment, and the cultivator families with sharp eyes all cried out in astonishment. The 3-foot-tall vermilion bird dharma body rushed into the vermilion bird flame that was flying down from above. As the vermilion bird dharma body submerged into it, the vermilion bird flame instantly shrank to about 10 feet. Its previously unclear face suddenly appeared, and a pair of cold eyes also suddenly appeared. These eyes were staring at Shang Qinghe. Ouch! When Shang Qinghe saw that the vermilion bird's eyes seemed to be able to see through him, he couldn't help but be shocked. He didn't dare to be negligent. With a wave of his hand, a string of phantoms flew out from the golden saber magic weapon and slashed into the air. At the same time, Shang Qinghe cast several spells on himself, seemingly to strengthen his defense. Unfortunately, before the phantoms of the golden saber magic weapon could fly in front of the vermilion bird, they were fanned away by the vermilion bird's wings without a trace. Ignorant man, you misled me. Shang Qinghe was awakened by the terrifying vermilion bird flame in front of him. He shouted loudly and wanted to fly away. Moreover, he seemed to want to take out a magic weapon from his storage bag. However, the vermilion bird flew extremely fast. Shang Qinghe only flew half a foot, and the brilliance in his hand had not yet appeared. The vermilion bird passed through him and rushed to the 2 city guards in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm behind him without stopping at all. Boom, 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 boom. Red flames suddenly appeared on Shang Qinghe and the 2 city guards behind him. In an instant, the 3 people's bodies were ignited. Without waiting for the 3 people to do anything, and without hearing the 3 people's screams, their bodies were turned into ashes. Then the exposed bones in the fire were also burned one by one, turning into ashes that fell to the ground. Squeak! There was another vermilion bird cry. The entire vermilion bird flame flew to the top of the vermilion bird palace hall and disappeared, but Huang Tianle's vermilion bird dharma body didn't come out. Of course, only Xiao Hua could see the vermilion bird flame fly to the top of the palace hall. The eyes of the others fell on the 3 flames. The 3 flames that instantly killed the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. This is a cultivator in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Su Mingyu murmured, there are still 2 city guards in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. They didn't have the power to fight back at all. Seeing the flames gradually dissipating, everyone's hearts were still beating fast. It seemed that they hadn't recovered from the shock just now. Cough cough, Huang Tianle seemed to have aged a lot. He actually coughed twice and covered his mouth. He slowly walked to the side of the table and slowly sat down. When he raised the wine jug and poured himself a cup, he leisurely drank it. Only then did a faint blush appear on his face. Fellow Taoist Huang. Xie Yushi of Jingqi Peak sighed with emotion. The vermilion bird flame array is indeed worthy of its reputation. It is said that it can kill a nascent soul realm cultivator. It is indeed possible. Alas, the captain of the city guards of Haoming City died here. I'm afraid it will be difficult for fellow Taoist Huang to explain. Chang Si of the Jianghu Pai said worriedly. Didn't fellow Taoist Huang ask clearly earlier? Did you come here on behalf of Haoming City, or did you come here on your own? Su Mingyu smiled and said, since you came here on your own, don't blame others for your lack of skills. Besides, if you want to blame fellow Taoist Huang, you have to see if the vermilion bird flame array of Tianmen Mountain is willing. Thank you for your concern, fellow Taoists. Huang Tianle smiled and said, this bastard has evil intentions towards my Tianmen Mountain. As soon as he came, he killed our distinguished guest of Tianmen Mountain and forced me to take out my long-lost ancestral treasure. I killed him. Firstly, I can give an explanation to the Lu family of Chanxi. Secondly, I can also help Haoming City clean up the city. I think Taoist Yanhong will also understand this matter. Everyone suddenly understood. No wonder Huang Tianle let Shang Qinghe kill Lu Fan so easily just now. It turned out that Huang Tianle already had the intention to kill him. However, they never thought that Huang Tianle, who was in the early stage of Foundation establishment, could kill Shang Qinghe, who was in the middle stage of Foundation establishment, and 2 city guards who were in the early stage of Foundation establishment. This vermilion bird flame array was really terrifying. Chapter 1933. Therefore, everyone unconsciously looked at the flames around the Vermilion Bird Palace. Fellow cultivators, Huang Tianle seemed to understand everyone's thoughts and smiled apologetically. I just activated the Vermilion Bird formation and consumed a lot of spiritual power. I can't open the formation at this time. Don't be afraid, you are my distinguished guests. After I recover my spiritual power, I will open the formation immediately. Su Mingzong laughed and said, Fellow cultivator Huang, you are really treating us as outsiders. We have been staying in the Tianmen Mountain for more than 10 days. What evil intentions do you have? With the protection of this formation, we are safe, not to mention an evil guest like Shang Qinghe. That's right. All the cultivators laughed and felt relieved. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Xiao Hua frowned slightly and thought to himself, in order to kill Shang Qinghe, Huang Tianle threw the Vermilion Bird celestial body into the Vermilion Bird flame formation. Looking at his weak appearance now, I'm afraid it's not just a simple consumption of spiritual power. If there is no accident, Huang Tianle's life is in danger. Moreover, what does Shang Qinghe mean by, an ordinary man misleads me? However, since the last sentence was heard by everyone, such as Su Mingzong and the others, Xiao Hua didn't want to be nosy. Fellow cultivators, please drink this 3rd cup of wine. I hope that good things are hard to come by. Today, we can find the cause of Xiang Er's illness. Huang Tianle waved his hand and let the disciples standing in the palace fill his wine cup. Good. Everyone finally finished the 3rd cup of wine and quietly waited for Huang Tianle's arrangement. Huang Tianle drank the spirit wine in the wine cup in his hand, then he clapped his hand. With a pa-pa sound, the disciple who was standing behind him took a few steps back and walked to a decoration on the left side of the hall. He took out a token and pasted it on it. With the activation of spiritual power, the decoration emitted a faint red brilliance. The brilliance spread out for about 10 meters in front of him, and then there was a fluctuation of spiritual power in the space. It gradually faded like paint, revealing a crimson jade bed. On the jade bed, a young woman was sleeping soundly, and beside the woman was a middle-aged woman in tears. Another male cultivator who looked very similar to Huang Tianle was standing beside the jade bed with a sad face. Xiao Hua and the others' expressions changed when they saw the 2 cultivators around the 12th layer of qi refining appear. They'd all used their divine senses to scan the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, but none of them had discovered that there was actually still a restriction in that place. Furthermore, there were still people behind the restriction. Seeing the restriction open, the female cultivator wiped her tears and stood up from the bed, revealing her charming face. I, Huang Liang, and I, Yang Yu, greet fellow Taoists. The male and female cultivators bowed to the other cultivators and said, We thank everyone for coming from afar for the matter of my daughter. Oh, so it's Huang Tianle's son and daughter-in-law. Everyone suddenly understood. No wonder they hadn't seen Huang Tianle's son. It turned out they were all hiding here. However, seeing that Huang Liang and Yang Yu were only at the peak of qi refining, everyone understood even more. We don't dare. Thinking that Huang Liang might be the head of Tianmen Mountain's Huang clan in the future, no one dared to be negligent. Most of them cupped their hands and returned the greeting. Liang, how is Xiang Er's condition? Huang Tianle asked. I'll let father know. There's no change. Huang Liang whispered. Huang Tianle turned to the crowd and said, My family Xiang Er is here. I'm sure everyone can see it with their divine sense. Of course, everyone can come to the front and treat him carefully. However, everyone only has one chance, and the time is only the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. I hope everyone can understand. Then, with a wave of his hand, a crimson magic tool appeared in his hand. He said sorrowfully, "This is Tianmen Mountain's magic tool, Sparrow Drink. If any fellow Taoist can wake Xiang, this magic tool will belong to that fellow Taoist." Xiaohua's divine sense swept over, and he saw that in Huang Tianle's hand was a magic tool that looked like an ink stone. A faint crimson radiance flowed within it. It was obviously an exceptional fire-type magic tool. He then looked at the surrounding aura-refining cultivators, and their eyes all revealed greedy gazes. "Fellow Taoist Huang," Su Mingyu said softly, "from what Shangqing has said just now, it seems it has something to do with Xiang Er's coma. Fellow Taoist Huang was too careless just now. If it's a trick by that bastard, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for us to solve it." Huang Tianle waved his hand and the magic tool, Sparrow Drink, was placed on the table. He smiled bitterly and said, "It's not that I'm careless, but that bastard is too overbearing. If I only use this Sparrow Drink to counteract, how could I be so ruthless? That bastard not only covets my Tianmen Mountain's ancestral magic tool, but also wants to use everyone's lives to threaten us. It's not that I haven't thought of compromising and using this to exchange for Xiang Er's life, but is it that simple?" "Forget it." Su Mingyu sighed and said, "It's useless to say more now. I'll be the first to take a look. I hope I can see something. Fellow Taoist Su, please." Huang Tianle stood up and accompanied Su Mingyu to the crimson jade bed. Huang Mingxiang's jade-like cheeks were extremely beautiful, and her thin and long eyebrows were enchanting. Although her eyes were slightly closed and her real expression could not be seen, her long eyelashes were trembling slightly as if she was having a wonderful dream. It was really pitiful. Su Mingyu had already checked with his divine sense and found nothing unusual. He walked to the window, cupped his hands and said to Huang Liang, "Fellow Taoist Huang, I'm sorry to offend you. Senior Su, please." Huang Liang bowed in return. Su Mingyu stretched out his hand and placed a finger between Huang Mingxiang's eyebrows, transferring a wisp of true energy. However, after nearly half a cup of tea's time, Su Mingyu frowned and opened his eyes. A trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. He withdrew his hand and said with a wry smile, "Fellow Taoist Huang, I've embarrassed myself. This girl clearly looks like she's asleep. There's nothing unusual at all." "Senior Su, you're right. That's the problem." Yang Yu smiled apologetically and said, "Xiang has been in the 9th layer of qi refining for a long time. How could she sleep so much? Even if she's really asleep, why can't she be woken up? She's been sleeping for more than a year. Her cultivation hasn't improved but has regressed. Alas, forgive me for being powerless." Su Mingyu sighed. "Although I've prepared some methods, it doesn't seem to be effective. Let's look at the other fellow Taoists." It's fine. Fellow Taoist Su, please take a seat." Huang Tianle smiled apologetically. When Su Mingyu returned to his seat, a few cultivators came over and asked in low voices. Su Mingyu answered them in full detail. Then, Jing Qifeng Xieyu came forward and took out a diamond-shaped jade pendant from his storage bag. He said with a smile, "This is my Jing Qifeng's magic tool, Rain Dew. It's used to clear the heart and purify the spirit. I specially brought it here. I hope it'll be useful." Chapter 1934. "Okay, Senior Xie, please help." Huang Liang looked at it and nodded in agreement. Xie Yujiang did not hesitate. He waved his hand and the raindrops flew on Huang Mingxiang's forehead. Then, Xie Yujiang cast a few spells on the raindrops. The raindrops emitted a light blue brilliance and turned into a palm-sized cloud. Then, like raindrops, a light blue liquid dripped from the cloud and fell on Huang Mingxiang's forehead. When the liquid fell on Huang Mingxiang's forehead, it immediately seeped into it and disappeared. However, after waiting for half a cup of tea's time, Huang Mingxiang still did not move. During this time, he only frowned slightly and licked his lips with his light red tongue. Alas! Xie Yujiang put away the raindrops and shook his head. "It seems that it still can't treat the illness. I can't do anything. Thank you, fellow Taoist." Huang Tianle's expression did not change. He raised his hand and asked Xie Yujiang to return to his seat. Then, more than a dozen cultivators in the early stage of foundation establishment used either magic tools or spells. There was even a cultivator who took out a smelly pill and wanted Huang Mengxiang to take it. Huang Tianle naturally refused. After the cultivator took a little of it, Huang Tianle took the pill and put it into Huang Mengxiang's mouth. Unfortunately, these cultivators could not wake Huang Mengxiang up. When it was Xiaohua's turn, Xiaohua simply didn't stand up and only waved his hand. That Huang Tianle also faintly nodded and indicated for the next cultivator to come up. 4 hours quickly passed. Not only had all the foundation establishment cultivators seen it, even 90% of the other qi condensation disciples had seen it. Only a few cultivators sitting near the entrance of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall had yet to stand up. At this time, a strong young cultivator stood up and walked to Huang Tianle. He bowed and said, "Junior Zheng Ziho from Meng Country's Dengming Mountain greets Senior Huang." A disciple of Meng Country's Dengming Mountain? Huang Tianle was obviously stunned. Looking at Zheng Ziho's jade-like face and bright eyes, he smiled and said, "I didn't expect the matter of my Tianmen Mountain to spread to Meng Country. I'll let Senior Huang know that this junior has come to the country of Shi to gain experience. Coincidentally, this junior has come to broaden my horizons." Zheng Ziho replied politely, "Naturally, I hope that I can help Senior Huang to wake Miss Mengxiang from her coma." "Alright, go take a look." Huang Tianle nodded. This Huang's bounty didn't say that it was limited to the country of Shi. "If you can save Xiang, I can give you the sparrow drink." "Thank you for your generosity, Senior Huang." Zheng Ziho came before the jade bed and bowed respectfully to Huang Liang and Yang Yu. Only then did he reach into his bosom and pull out a small spirit storage bag. This little cultivator actually has a spirit storage pouch? Xiaohua was very sensitive to this kind of thing and immediately recognized it. The other foundation establishment cultivators soon recognized him as well. Their faces were either filled with realization or regret. In any case, there were many different expressions. Zheng Ziho opened the spirit storage bag and muttered something. Then, he pointed his finger and a hornet-like spirit insect flew out from the bag. As soon as the spirit insect flew out, it made a soft buzzing sound and circled Zheng Ziho twice before floating in front of him. "Senior Huang, this is a spirit insect, hummingbird. This junior has raised it to check on Miss Mengxiang's condition." Zheng Ziho was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he asked respectfully, "Hummingbird?" Before Huang Tianle could speak, Xiaohua was stunned. He immediately thought of the records in the insect scripture. Of course, he was just casually looking at it. Now that he saw a real spirit insect, he naturally thought of the records. Hummingbird, sensitive to all kinds of spiritual energy and spiritual objects. It has no attack power and is ranked 22nd. This spirit insect itself has no value. It's just that it can sense all kinds of spiritual energy. That's why it's ranked so high. Xiaohua thought, this Zheng Ziho can raise this thing. It might be unexpected. Huang Tianle seemed to have heard of the hummingbird's name. He looked at it and nodded slightly. "Thank you, Senior Huang." Zheng Ziho smiled slightly, revealing his white jade-like teeth. He looked very graceful. "Go." Zheng Ziho muttered the incantation again. After a moment, he pointed his finger. The hummingbird circled in the air for a while and then flew down. It actually drilled into Huang Mengxiang's straight nose. Zheng Ziho immediately sat down with his eyes closed and his palms facing the sky. His hands formed an unknown seal. Zheng Ziho's expression was indifferent at first, then a little stunned, then a little surprised, then a little sleepy. In the end, his brows wrinkled tightly and then relaxed again. He seemed to have a card up his sleeve. Huang Tianle's heart seemed to change along with Zheng Ziho's expression from time to time. When Zheng Ziho opened his eyes, he immediately said, "Honorable nephew Zheng." Zheng Ziho was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, he faintly smiled and pointed his finger at Huang Mengxiang. Then, as if there was a heavy object hanging from his fingertips, he slowly lifted it up. The hummingbird slowly crawled out of Huang Mengxiang's nose. The hummingbird appeared to be very tired. It barely flew half a foot in the air before suddenly falling down. However, Jing Ziho extended his hand and caught it. He immediately put it away in his spirit storage pouch. Honorable nephew Zheng, you've worked hard. Huang Tianle knew that Jing Ziho had exhausted his mind. He unconsciously felt warm in his heart and smiled. How is the situation? It's all right. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Jing Ziho's voice carried a trace of exhaustion as he spoke in a slightly hoarse voice. Ah? Not only was Huang Tianle shocked, all of the cultivators in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall were greatly shocked. They didn't think that Huang Mingxiang's condition would be diagnosed by a little cultivator at the 8th level of qi refining. It was truly inconceivable. Honorable nephew Zheng, please speak. Huang Tianle said happily. I'll let Senior Huang know that Miss Meng Xiang was implanted with a dream mirage butterfly. Zheng Ziho seemed to want to shock people to death and said without hesitation. What? Dream mirage butterfly? How is this possible? Huang Tianle shook his head. Although this old man doesn't know anything about spiritual insects, I still know a little about them. This dream mirage butterfly has long been extinct in my Xiaoyu continent. How could it appear in my Tianmen mountain? Besides, in ancient times, the dream mirage butterfly was good at creating illusions. It was usually used in the eye of an illusion array. How could it be implanted in Xiang Er's body? That's right. Su Mingyu also smiled. Although Meng Xiang is unconscious, it is completely different from the dream mirage butterfly's dream. If the ancient dream mirage butterfly appeared in Tianmen Mountain, I'm afraid the entire Tianmen Mountain would become an illusion and we would all be people in the illusion. Hee, what the seniors said is reasonable. Zheng Ziho was not in a hurry and said, just now, this junior was also surprised. This junior didn't expect to encounter this ancient spiritual insect. However, this ancient spiritual insect seems to be a larva, just an egg. Therefore, it can only create a dream in Miss Meng Xiang's body and can't affect others. This junior used the wasp gang to perceive the power of the dream and quickly escaped. Because of this junior also suffered a little injury. Dream mirage butterfly? Larva? Xiao Hua frowned slightly. The insect scripture didn't say that the dream mirage butterfly was extinct, but it was listed as the first spiritual insect. But listening to Zheng Ziho's words, it was reasonable and didn't seem to be hiding anything. Then, how can fellow Zheng wake up Xiang? Huang Liang was overjoyed. He didn't care about the dream mirage butterfly, he just wanted to know how to wake up his daughter. Zheng Ziho was a little embarrassed and hesitated, but he didn't answer. Nephew Zheng, if you have any difficulties, just say it. Huang Tianle frowned and said, as long as this Huang can bear it, I will definitely do it. Zheng Ziho sighed and said, this junior doesn't know how to transmit sound, so I will say it now. Just say it. Huang Tianle looked around and said calmly. This junior is able to take out the eggs of the dream mirage butterfly, but this method is passed down from ancient times and has long been incomplete. This junior, because this method is too harmful to the harmony of the heavens, this junior has never used it. Nephew Zheng, is it because you are not sure? Huang Tianle asked. I am sure, Zheng Ziho said awkwardly. The method is to interfere with Miss Meng Xiang's primordial yin. Huang Tianle was dumbfounded. Of course, Senior Huang, this method is passed down from ancient times and will not affect Miss Meng Xiang's foundation establishment. Zheng Ziho quickly explained with a red face. But even if he explained, how could Huang Tianle's brows loosen? How could everyone in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall not be stunned? Primordial yin, how could it be interfered with at will? A female cultivator's primordial yin could only be picked by her dual cultivation partner, others could not touch it. Of course, the primordial yin of a female cultivator of the Immortal Beauty sect was originally for sale and could not be generalized. But since Huang Mingxiang's primordial yin could not be touched at will, she could only sleep sweetly in the dream created by the dream mirage butterfly's larva until she finally died of old age. But if Huang Mingxiang's primordial yin was touched, she could only dual cultivate with that person, otherwise she could only guard it for the rest of her life. This junior has nothing else to say. If Senior Huang is willing, this junior will first report to the sect. This matter is really beyond this junior's expectations, so I ask Senior Huang to reconsider. Zheng Ziho's face was red as he cupped his hands to Huang Tianle, Huang Mang, and Yang Yu, then silently walked back to his seat. Jin, what do you think? Huang Tianle had no choice. After all, he was only a grandfather. If this matter really concerned Huang Mingxiang's life, he could only ask Huang Mingxiang's parents. When Yang Yu and Huang Mang heard Zheng Ziho's words, they had been communicating with each other for a long time. The two of them seemed to be somewhat willing, but also somewhat unwilling. After all, Zheng Ziho looked good, and Wind God Ryu was worthy of Huang Mingxiang. But on the other hand, Skygate Mountain did not know much about the Zheng family of Ascending Light Mountain, and Zheng Ziho was only at Qi Refinement Stage 8, which could not be compared to Huang Mingxiang, who was at the peak of Qi Refinement Stage 9. Hearing Huang Tianle's question, Huang Mang communicated with Yang Yu for a while, then smiled bitterly and said, "Father, since it's the Dream Mirage Butterfly, unless it's an ancient secret technique, even if the Spirit Husbandry Sect's disciples came personally, they would not be able to get rid of it. Furthermore, we can't try this method. If Heavenly Gate Mountain has made up our mind and the Zheng family is willing, we have no choice but to be cautious." Chapter 1935. Alas, how can I not be cautious? Huang Tianle smiled bitterly. Huang Mingxiang was his granddaughter, and Huang Mang had no children. If there was no accident, Huang Mingxiang's husband would be in charge of Tianmen Mountain. Even if the other branches would dispute, Huang Mingxiang's husband would get half of Tianmen Mountain's power. This was not something that could be decided casually. It involved the marriage between Xi country's Tianmen Mountain and Meng country's Dengming Mountain. Moreover, the cause of Huang Mingxiang's illness had been found, and the cure had been found, but who planted the eggs of the Dream Mirage Butterfly? What if the instigator was Zheng Ziho? This had to be carefully considered. Of course, Huang Tianle was also very clear that with Zheng Ziho's cultivation, it was impossible for him to sneak into Tianmen Mountain and easily sneak attack Huang Mingxiang, who was close to 100% Qi refinement. Moreover, he had never received any news about Meng country's cultivators coming to Tianmen Mountain. "Father, there are still some cultivators behind. Why don't we take a look?" Huang Mang said fortunately. "Alas, since they're all here, how can we not give others a fair chance?" Huang Tianle waved his hand. However, as Huang Tianle expected, he also broke Huang Mang's delusion. Although the remaining Qi refinement disciples knew it was a Dream Mirage Butterfly, no one could do anything about it. They even walked around the jade bed, as if they were admiring Huang Mingxiang's beautiful face, and then returned to their positions. Alas, when the last Qi refinement disciple bowed and returned, Huang Tianle waved his hand and said somewhat powerlessly, "Thank you for coming, fellow Taoists. Today can be considered a happy ending." But at this moment, Xiaohua's voice sounded again. "Fellow Taoist Huang, this little one is not talented. I didn't go forward just now, but now I suddenly thought of something, and I'm willing to go forward and try." Fellow Taoist Xiao? Huang Tianle was stunned. He looked at Xiaohua's tall and thin figure and couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Mo Yun Village has an ancient method of controlling insects? Mo Yun Village?" Hearing Huang Tianle call out Mo Cloud Village's name, the cultivators from the surrounding sects and families were all shocked. Mo Cloud Village was too small. How could it have any ancient methods? Even Chang Lihao and the others blushed and lowered their heads. They did not dare to look at the mocking eyes of the people around them. "Oh, if that's the case, then I won't embarrass myself." Xiaohua smiled and sat down again, appearing very casual. "Oh, fellow Taoist Xiao." Huang Tianle was a little anxious when he heard this. He quickly smiled apologetically and said, "I didn't mean anything else, I just blurted it out. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please don't overthink it." "Fellow Taoist Huang, don't be too careful." Xie Yusher smiled and said, "I went to Mo Cloud Village a few years ago and drank with Dao friend Chang. I haven't heard of Mo Cloud Village having any guest elders, this Dao friend Xiao." When Xie Yusher talked about Dao friend Chang from Mo Cloud Village, although he said they drank together, His tone was filled with disdain. He didn't finish his evaluation of Xiaohua, but his words were very clear. Although the other cultivation families in the Vermilion Bird Temple were not satisfied with Xie Yusher's attitude toward Mo Cloud Village, they remembered that the dream dragonfly was an ancient beast. Almost all of them came here from legends. If they couldn't do anything about it, what could the disciples of Mo Cloud Village do? If they stood up now, it would be more like they were trying to please the crowd. Jing Ziho sat upright with his eyebrows lowered. He was incomparably respectful and gave off the feeling that he was unfazed by favor or humiliation. Most of the people around him looked at him, then looked at Xiaohua and whispered to each other. Huang Tianle was a bit annoyed as he looked at the people around him and let out a sigh in his heart. He knew that people's hearts were the most unpredictable. Among all the cultivators here, there might not be many who really came to help him. Most of them were here for the Sparrow Guide treasure, and even more were here to travel. To put it bluntly, they were here to watch the fun. Not only was there Heaven Gate Mountain, there was also Ascension Mountain, and there was also the topic of Primordial Een. How could they not like it? Perhaps they would become the laughing stock of others in the future. As for Xiaohua standing up now, one reason was to ruin their mood and not let them see the fun in the future. 2. Xiaohua also had the intention of waiting until the end to get up after finding out it was the dream dragonfly, which made these people a bit angry. Naturally, the most important thing was that they didn't care about Huang Mingxiang's life or death at all. Ju Er. Huang Tianle naturally didn't like Xiaohua's attitude, but Huang Mingxiang was the hope of Heaven Gate Mountain and his heart, so he had to lower his attitude. Yes, father. Huang Liang understood very well. He quickly walked in front of Xiaohua, bowed respectfully, and said, Senior Xiao, my daughter has been plotted against by evil people for more than a year. Junior and Xiang Er's mother are burning with anxiety. Although fellow Taoist Zheng's treatment and methods are available now, if Senior has a better method, please give it a try. Junior and others will be very grateful. Xiaohua was the most soft-hearted. He just sat down because he wasn't satisfied with the attitude of Xie Yusher and others. How could he not help? Seeing Huang Liang bowing to him with a sad face and calling him senior, how could he sit still? He stood up and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Huang, this Xiao is very clear about the pains of parents. Since this Xiao came to Heaven Gate Mountain, although I didn't expect to be of any use, now that I can help a little, how could I not help? Besides, don't you have the Sparrow Guide treasure? My Mo Cloud Village is very envious. Senior Xiao, don't tease this junior please. Huang Liang said with a wry smile. Darling Xiao. Xue Xue said in a low voice. She had heard of the mirage butterfly before. She knew that this ominous creature had been eradicated by powerful experts in ancient times because it was harmful to heaven and earth. Now that it had suddenly appeared, it was very strange. Moreover, it was a mirage butterfly. Even if it was an insect egg, it was absolutely not something that a foundation establishment cultivator could deal with. Xiaohua looked back and smiled, saying, Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Seeing Xue Xue so worried, Huang Liang's heart sank a little, and he had a little more doubts about Xiaohua's methods. If Huang Liang was like this, there was no need to talk about the others. Zheng Ziho just raised his eyelids and looked down at the spirit wine on the table. The sparkling spirit wine was slightly overflowing, and it was very tempting and delicious. Xiaohua, on the other hand, was calm, and walked to the side of the jade bed with light steps. Thank you, Senior Xiao. Although Yang Yu didn't believe it in her heart, she didn't dare to neglect Xiaohua and respectfully saluted. Xiaohua looked at Yang Yu's flickering eyes and didn't care what she was thinking. He only looked at Huang Mingxiang's face that was like an ice sculpture. His heart was surging, and another scene unconsciously appeared in front of his eyes. Chapter 1936. Even when Jing Ziho stepped forward just now, Xiaohua didn't feel like he could do anything. However, when Jing Ziho placed the wasp into Huang Mingxiang's nose, fragments of memories suddenly emerged in Xiaohua's mind. These fragments weren't too continuous, but within the fragments, there was also a woman as thin as a match, A woman who looked both unfamiliar and familiar at the same time. She was quietly lying on a bed, and a left hand that emitted a silver brilliance was placed on her forehead. This woman looks very familiar, but I can't remember who she is. She seems to be a secular woman, not a cultivator. Xiaohua took a deep breath, calmed his mind, and released his divine sense, scanning Huang Mingxiang's Naiwen Palace. Huang Mingxiang was a 9th-layer qi refining cultivator, so his Naiwen Palace naturally had a defense. However, under Xiaohua's divine sense, which was comparable to a gold core cultivator, it was extremely easy to break through. However, it was obvious that there was nothing special inside. Xiaohua wasn't surprised. He stretched out his left hand, seemingly to comb a strand of hair on Huang Mingxiang's forehead, but he opened his delusion-breaker eyes. Senior Xiao. Xiaohua's action was rather inappropriate. Although he was in the early stage of foundation establishment, his appearance was young, not much different from Huang Mingxiang's. Stroking a woman's hair like this naturally made Yang Yu feel uneasy, so he immediately reminded Xiaohua. Huang Tianle scolded in a low voice, displeased. Xiaohua had already seen through Huang Mingxiang's Naiwen Palace. It was exactly like the fragment in his memory. There was indeed a light brown dot in the Naiwen Palace. It was extremely small and could evade divine sense. It's okay, I've already seen through it. However, it seems different from what little friend Jing said. This should be a kind of spiritual puppet, right? Spiritual puppet? When Xiaohua said this, not only Huang Tianle, but the entire Vermilion Bird Palace hall burst into laughter. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you're not mistaken, right? I've never heard of any spiritual puppet. Are you talking about Gu? Gu is a mysterious existence in the deepest part of the Meng Mountains, similar to witchcraft. They are even more mysterious than soul cultivators. How could they come to Tianmen Mountain and plot against an innocent female cultivator? Xie Yuqi asked in disbelief. Qi Mingzong's Zhu Feng also shook his head slightly. Fellow Taoist Xiao, this Zhu also thought highly of you before, but your words are really unreliable. It's even scarier than the dream mirage butterfly. This Zhu once faintly heard from the seniors that some devil cultivators, because they failed to cultivate devil arts, used puppets instead. Perhaps they are the soul puppets that you mentioned, but they were also devoured by the soul puppets. This thing is even scarier than the dream mirage butterfly. Chu River Sect's Qiming also smiled. I share the same thoughts as fellow Taoist Zhu. If the dream mirage butterfly's condition is similar to Huang Mingxiang's, then this so-called Gu or soul puppet probably doesn't have the same symptoms. The others were all talking at once, making it seem like they were more knowledgeable than Xiaohua. Xiaohua was very indifferent, looking at Huang Tianle without saying anything. Huang Tianle hesitated slightly and asked, Fellow Taoist Xiao, if it's a soul puppet or Gu, are you sure you can cure it? Before it's cured, who dares to make a guarantee? Xiaohua didn't have full confidence in activating the silver brilliance of the illusion breaker eye. Huang Tianle thought for a moment and said loudly, Nephew Zheng, what do you think? Zheng Ziho stood up respectfully, his expression unchanged, and said with a smile, Senior Xiao naturally has his reasons for saying so. This junior has nothing to say, but this junior has a question. How did Senior Xiao determine if it's a soul puppet? Naturally I saw it with my divine sense. Xiaohua said with a smile. Huang Tianle didn't believe it himself. This Huang doesn't seem to have seen it. This Huang has also used divine sense many times. This junior doesn't have divine sense, so naturally I don't know if I can see it or not. Zheng Ziho said with a smile. However, since Senior Xiao can see it, can others also see it? This Xiaohua was a little tongue-tied, shaking his head. This is this Xiao's secret method, I'm afraid others can't. Jianghu Sect's Chang Si and the rest shook their heads again. If Xiaohua directly said that he was a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, they might believe it a little. But at this time, Xiaohua was a guest elder of Mo Cloud Stronghold. Who didn't know Mo Cloud Stronghold's foundation? Looks like I have to reveal my identity to the Huang family. Xiaohua sighed and said in his heart. Just as Xiao Hua was about to transmit his voice, he heard Jing Ziho cup his hands and say, "Senior Xiao, since Senior also has a method to determine that Miss Mingxiang is under a soul puppet, and this Junior determined that it's a dream mirage butterfly, of course, this Junior doesn't have divine sense and can't examine, then, can Senior join forces with this Junior once? If Senior's judgment is correct, and this Junior is wrong, then wouldn't this Junior save a lot of trouble? We all want to wake Miss Mingxiang up, don't we? Anyone can do it." "Great. Nephew Zheng is right," Huang Tianle said with great joy. "All right." Xiao Hua was slightly taken aback. He wanted to refute, but he couldn't think of any suitable reason, so he could only nod his head. Jing Ziho didn't wait for Xiao Hua to hesitate. He immediately walked in front of Huang Mingxiang, patted his hand, and took out his spirit storage bag. However, he only took out the spirit storage bag and placed it in his hand without opening it. He said very respectfully, "Senior Xiao, please make the first move. This Junior will listen to Senior's instructions." Seeing Jing Ziho like this, Xiao Hua's vigilance disappeared. However, he still didn't understand why he had to make the first move. However, how could Xiao Hua be afraid of Jing Ziho? He nodded slightly and swept his divine sense inside. However, just as Xiao Hua's divine sense entered Huang Mingxiang's Naiwen Palace, it swept across a light brown. It was a colorful and tiny insect egg. What's going on? Wasn't it just a moment ago? Xiao Hua was slightly shocked. However, it was only a slight shock. When his divine sense collided with the insect egg, his entire divine sense immediately began to spin. It was as if he had knocked open a majestic door. Xiao Hua felt a flash in front of his eyes. Everything changed. His entire body actually appeared at a ferry with biting cold winds. Where is this? How did I? Who am I? Xiao Hua stared blankly at a wooden stake that stretched straight into the river at the ferry. He looked around in a daze. "Xiao Hua, Xiao Hua." A crisp voice sounded from behind Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua suddenly turned his head. He saw a small, thin, weak and very pretty girl running over and shouting, "Why did you come out again? Your injuries haven't completely healed yet?" "Is that so? When did I get injured?" Just as Xiao Hua thought of this, he suddenly felt an incomparable pain in his body. He couldn't help but reach out his hand to support his waist. However, what he touched was actually not a Taoist robe, but a cyan robe. The style was somewhat strange. Xiao Hua felt that this girl was very familiar. It was so familiar that it was as if she was engraved in his heart. However, he just couldn't call out her name. "Xiao Hua, let me help you back." The girl very carefully supported Xiao Hua's arm. Her figure was actually slightly taller than Xiao Hua's by a bit. When Xiao Hua turned around, he saw that there was actually an open thatched cottage beside the ferry. Following the girl's footsteps, Xiao Hua walked into the thatched cottage with some difficulty. When he sat on the withered grass on the ground of the thatched cottage, the girl said in a somewhat low voice, "Xiao Hua, I will leave with Shirtai tomorrow. Your injuries haven't healed yet. My heart is very uneasy." "Shirtai?" Xiao Hua was even more at a loss. However, he still very naturally said, "All right, Shirtai is a good person. If you go with her, you will definitely be able to find yourself." But the girl wanted to say something, but she was also a bit shy. After thinking for a long time, she took out an item from her bosom and extended it in front of his eyes. She said to him in a trembling voice, "Brother Xiao Hua, after we part today, I don't know when we will meet again. I found this in my own pouch. It is something that I always carry with me. I don't remember where it came from. However, it looks somewhat familiar to me. It must be something that belongs to me. Today, I will give it to you as a souvenir." When Xiao Hua carefully looked at it, he saw that the jade-like girl was holding a pair of pearl hair clips. He couldn't help but be greatly alarmed. He very naturally waved his hand and said, "How would I dare to accept such a precious thing?" The girl angrily said, "What's so precious about this? Is it because it is valuable? However, even if it is worth a lot of money, no one uses it. If it is casually thrown away, how much money would it be worth? However, even if it is worthless, if someone cherishes it, Then wouldn't it be more precious than this thing that no one wants? If you don't want it, then I will just throw it into the river. Hongxia. The girl raised her eyebrows. She looked very much like fairy Hongxia. Xiaohua couldn't help but call out. When the girl heard Xiaohua actually call her Hongxia, her face became even more desolate. She said, You actually forgot the name that you gave me? You are. Xiaohua was very anxious. However, at this moment, the girl's face suddenly changed. She actually turned into the beautiful Huang Mengxiang. Huang Mengxiang was clearly startled. She looked around in amazement and shouted loudly, Where is this place? Are you this concubine's husband? Husband, save me. Soon after, she actually lost her head out of fear and threw herself into Xiaohua's arms. She tightly hugged Xiaohua. Meng. Xiang. Xiaohua suddenly felt a pain in his head. The god's guidance that he hadn't used for a long time was suddenly activated. Xiaohua's figure immediately rushed into the sky from where he was standing. He flew straight up into the sky, flying into an unknown number of clouds. Like a chain breaking, Xiaohua's divine sense suddenly appeared in Huang Mingxiang's Naiwen palace. Before this, his divine sense was still that multicolored insect egg. Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. His entire body was covered in cold sweat. You dare! Xiaohua shouted loudly. His divine sense rushed out of Huang Mingxiang's Naiwen palace. He clapped his hands and a great confinement technique smashed toward Jingziho. However, the moment Xiaohua used the technique, the corners of Xiaohua's mouth curled up into a smile. The magic power on his body flickered, and he easily withdrew the technique. Jingziho, who was standing next to Xiaohua, had his spirit storage pouch raised in his hand just like Xiaohua's divine sense. However, at this time, Jingziho's eyes were slightly closed. His face was filled with happiness. Even his eyes were fiercely moving under his eyelids, as if he was having a dream that he had been drooling for a long time. Chapter 1937. Xiaohua immediately understood and sneered. Sure enough, unrighteousness leads to self-destruction. I haven't even made a move and I've already fallen into my own trap. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and took Jingziho's spirit storage bag. Then, he unceremoniously took off the storage bag hanging on his waist and put it into his arms. Fellow Xiao, what's going on? Huang Tianle was stunned and hurriedly wanted to stop Xiaohua's actions. After all, Xiaohua's spirit sense swept in for a moment. When Xiaohua swept out with his spirit sense, he immediately took Jingziho's things. How could Huang Tianle not be shocked? Fellow Huang, didn't you see? Your so-called honorable nephew Zheng is the culprit who plotted against Huang Mengxiang. This Xiao was almost framed by him just now. However, it seems that this bastard's plan was flawless. I'm afraid that he didn't take into account this Xiao's cultivation level. He spun a cocoon around himself and suffered a backlash from his cultivation method. Xiaohua glanced at Huang Tianle and said with a smile, Ah? Sure enough. Huang Tianle originally had some doubts, but when he saw that although Jingziho was standing motionless, he still had a sweet sleeping expression on his face, just short of lying down, just like Huang Mengxiang, he immediately understood. Any secret technique that was related to the Naiwen Palace was closely related to the divine sense. Presumably, this Xiaohua in front of him practiced a secret technique that strengthened the divine sense, exceeding the expectations of Jingziho's secret technique. Therefore, he was able to break through Jingziho's secret technique and injure Jingziho. Fellow Xiao, can you wake Jingziho up? I'm very curious. How did he plot against Jianghu? Moreover, his purpose. Speaking until here, Huang Tianle didn't continue. Jingziho had already made it clear that he wanted to dual cultivate and obtain primordial yin. He must be coveting Huang Mengxiang and Tianmen Mountain's inheritance. What else was there to ask? Sorry, fellow Huang. Xiaohua shook his head slightly. I don't know what cultivation method Jingziho used. Naturally, I can't wake him up. However, Huang Tianle glanced at the storage bag that Xiaohua had just put away. Fellow Xiao, this is just your side of the story. Who knows if what you said is true or false? Or maybe Zheng Ziho is innocent and you are the culprit. Xie Yuji's voice rang out, while Chang Si, Su Mingyu, and the others also slightly spread out, surrounding Xiaohua in the middle. Xiaohua glanced at them and didn't seem to be afraid. He only said indifferently, even if I am the culprit, my goal is that sparrow drink, right? I didn't think about primordial yin or the inheritance of Tianmen Mountain. If I can save Huang Mengxiang, fellow Taoist Huang won't be stingy with that magic tool, right? Fellow Taoist Huang, you are the master of this place. I and the others will listen to you. If you are willing, I and the others will immediately take down Xiaohua and force him to cure Huang Mengxiang's illness. Zhu Huifeng of the Ward Cavalry said loudly with a sinister smile. Hehen, Xiaohua stood with his hands behind his back, completely ignoring them. He only looked at Xue Xue in the distance, hinting her to be at ease. Why would Xue Xue be worried? This was a fierce person who could casually kill a middle-stage Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator. In front of her were early-stage Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. Why would she be worried? Huang Tianle hesitated for a moment, but in his heart he didn't care. After all, what Xie Yuji and the others said was reasonable, and he himself couldn't determine who was the culprit. However, the difference between Mo Cloud Village and Ascending Light Mountain was obvious. Huang Tianle hesitated again. Father. Seeing Huang Tianle hesitate, Huang Mang immediately said in a low voice, Xiang is still unconscious. Even if Xiaohua is the culprit, but he only wants the sparrow drink. My Tianmen Mountain's daughter can't compare to a magic tool? That's right. Huang Tianle quivered and came to his senses. He secretly gritted his teeth and waved his sleeves. Fellow Taoists, I understand your thoughts. I still have to thank you. However, under the Vermilion Bird Great Formation, how can I let the culprit escape? Even if fellow Taoist Xiao is the culprit, as long as you can save Xiang and give me this magic tool, what can I do? Then he changed his tone. In addition, fellow Taoist Xiao may be free, but fellow Taoist Chang of Mo Cloud Village, I know him very well. When I have time, Tianmen Mountain will pay a visit to Mo Cloud Village. Then I will welcome fellow Taoist Huang on behalf of fellow Taoist Chang. Xiaohua didn't care at all, and Chang Lihao and the others didn't care at all. Xiaohua was forced by them, so how could he make a move first? How could an upright cultivator who could challenge a middle-stage Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator for a mortal be a person who would plot against a female cultivator? Very good. Huang Tianle nodded. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please make a move. We will wait and see. Of course I can make a move, but I ask fellow Taoist Huang and fellow Taoist Yang to immediately carve the jade bed, and I also ask fellow Taoist Huang to set up the restriction again. Xiaohua's request was somewhat difficult for Huang Tianle, but after all, this was Xiaohua's secret technique, so it was normal that he didn't want others to see through it. As for Xiaohua being alone with Huang Mengxiang, Xiaohua was a Foundation Establishment Realm senior. Although he looked young, he was much older than Huang Mengxiang, so it wasn't a big deal. Seeing that Yang Yu was a bit worried, Huang Tianle flicked his sleeve and said, Come out. Xiang'er's life is important. Let fellow Taoist Xiao go in. Yes, father. Yang Yu didn't dare to disobey and reluctantly walked to Huang Chang's side. Huang Chang reached out and held her hand to comfort her. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please. Huang Tianle raised his hand and waited for Xiaohua to walk to the side of the jade bed. Huang Chang took the command medallion from the Huang family disciple beside him and set up the restriction. Seeing Xiaohua's figure disappear, the entire Vermilion Bird Palace hall was filled with whispers. Everyone's gaze was on the people from Mo Cloud Village. When Xiaohua saw the restriction form, he swept it with his divine sense and waved his hand. Dozens of spirit talismans appeared in his hand and were placed on different positions of the jade bed. As Xiaohua activated his magic power, a rabbit formation was formed, isolating all probing. Outside the restriction, Huang Chang unconsciously frowned and transmitted his voice to Huang Tianle. Huang Tianle's expression didn't change, and he also looked at Xue Xue and the others. Xiaohua walked to the front of the jade bed and looked at Huang Mingxiang, whose face was slightly flushed. He knew that this girl who was yearning for love was weaving her beautiful dreams. He couldn't help but smile. But when he reached out his hand, his expression became serious. After all, the delusion breaker Dharma Eye had only just awakened. All these years he had only looked at it. It was only on the night of Yi Yuan's sneak attack that he learned that the delusion breaker Dharma Eye might have the ability to emit silver light. As for the use of the silver light, Xiaohua only knew a little today. Xiaohua stretched out his left hand and pointed it at Huang Mingxiang's forehead. He saw the light brown dot quietly floating in his Naiwen palace and thought with all his might, "Withdraw, withdraw, withdraw." To be continued. Chapter 1938. Xiaohua didn't know how many times he thought about it, but the silver light still didn't appear. Damn it. Luckily there's no one here to watch me make a fool of myself. Xiaohua looked around with a guilty conscience. Then he clenched his left hand and focused his mind on the Dharma Eye imprint between his eyebrows. Soul thread? Xiaohua immediately remembered the soul-absorbing bell. His Dharma Eye could see through the soul thread and the location of the suspected soul in his mind. He had refined the soul thread before, so if he could activate the soul cultivation technique of the 9 heavens of the spirit origin, he should be able to activate the soul thread. If the soul thread moved, then the Dharma Eye imprint connected to the soul thread should also be able to move, right? After thinking it through, Xiaohua bent down and aimed his forehead at Huang Mingxiang's forehead. He closed his eyes and activated the soul cultivation technique of the 9 heavens of the spirit origin. Sure enough, in just a moment, the mysterious soul thread in Xiaohua's mind gradually sent a mysterious black gas into the Dharma Eye imprint of the Buddha relic. As the black gas intensified, the Dharma Eye imprint gradually revealed itself. When the outline of the Dharma Eye imprint gradually formed, Xiaohua felt a heat in between his eyebrows. A faint silver light shot out from the Dharma Eye imprint and directly shone into Huang Mingxiang's Naiwen palace. It firmly covered the light brown, but in fact, it was a multicolored. As the silver light shone, the light brown dot gradually rose until it flew out of Huang Mingxiang's forehead. The moment the light brown dot flew out, Huang Mingxiang stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. Then, he raised his arms above his head and stretched his body before he yelled, "Hey, hey, hey, hey." Xiaohua saw Huang Mingxiang wake up and smiled in his heart, but he didn't dare to move. The dot had just come out of the silver light. However, what happened next made Xiaohua very embarrassed. He saw Huang Mingxiang stretch her waist, her curves straightened, and then she opened her eyes. Seeing Xiaohua's face, Huang Mingxiang wasn't surprised at all. She rubbed her eyes and said, "Husband." Then, she reached out her hands and hugged Xiaohua's neck. "Fellow Taoist Huang." Xiaohua anxiously shouted. Seeing that Huang Mingxiang was ignoring him, Xiaohua simply ignored him and concentrated on sucking the light brown dot to a place not far from his glabella. Then, not daring to use his divine sense, he swept his mind and sent the egg of the dream sea butterfly into his space. "Husband, why are you so cold to this lowly concubine?" Feeling that Xiaohua didn't move, Huang Mingxiang said with extreme grievance, "Husband and concubine have been loving each other for more than 10 years. Could it be that you are already tired of this lowly concubine?" "Fellow Taoist Huang." Xiaohua very gently pushed away Huang Mingxiang, who was sticking to his body. Looking at Huang Mingxiang's beautiful face that was about to cry, he smiled and said, "Those were all dreams. Now I have already rescued you from the dream. Right now, we are in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall of your Tianmen Mountain." Dreamland? Huang Mingxiang's beautiful eyes flickered as she covered her mouth and giggled. "Husband, you're really funny. How can I not know if it's a dream?" "Huh, then what is this Xiao's surname and name?" Xiaohua said with a smile. "Naturally, your surname is Xiao and your name is Hua?" Huang Mingxiang smiled faintly and said, "This concubine has served you for more than 10 years. I even know every single hair on your body. How can I not know your name?" "Ah?" Xiaohua was dumbfounded. He didn't think that in the instant that the dream overlapped, Huang Mingxiang would know so much. Moreover, She had overlapped his image with all the beautiful dreams she had in the past year. Darling Xiao. Huang Mingxiang smiled again and said, "You are the most adorable. You are already so old, yet you are still joking with this concubine." Xiao Hua and Fairy Hong Xia had dual cultivated for a long time. How could he not know what Huang Mingxiang was thinking? Unfortunately, Huang Mingxiang was still a virgin. How could he take her innocence? Fellow Taoist Huang, then tell me, what cultivation level should you be at? Xiao Hua said with a smile. Naturally, I should be at the nascent soul stage. Huang Mingxiang had just said this when she suddenly realized. Her face was pale as she said, how did I reach the 9th level of the qi refining stage? This is what is going on. Alas. Xiao Hua sighed in his heart when he saw Huang Mingxiang so disappointed. Anyone who knew in their dream that they were already at the nascent soul stage, but when they woke up, they were only at the qi refining stage. How could they not be disappointed? Husband, tell me. Huang Mingxiang began to cry. Silly girl. Xiao Hua shook his head slightly and said in a low voice, "You were originally at the 9th level of the qi refining stage. However, a year ago, when you were trying to break through to the 10th level of the qi refining stage, you were plotted against by someone. Because of that, you entered the dream. From the 10th level of the qi refining stage to the nascent soul stage, and everything that happened during that period were all your own thoughts in the dream. But in fact, you were lying on a jade bed and dreaming. Your parents were crying beside you, and your grandfather was trying everything for you. I just happened to come to Tianmen Mountain at the right time and woke you up. Of course, you have to ask Huang Mang and the others." "Darling Xiao," Huang Mingxiang said in a sorrowful voice, "I was extremely happy in my dream, so why did you have to wake me up? I would rather be with you in the dream than wake up from the dream. You can stay in the dream, but after all, it is the void. Everything is the void. I am the void, you are the void, cultivation is the void, and all the voids are also the void. What do you think is the meaning of that? Moreover, your father, mother, and grandfather are all grieving for you. If you abandon your family for the sake of those voids, and your future true love and dual cultivation, do you think it's worth it?" Xiao Hua said softly. Huang Mingxiang continued to cry, but the sound of her crying gradually decreased. Presumably, she was slowly accepting this fact. Xiao Hua smiled again and said, "However, I think you can also benefit from this disaster. In the dream, you have comprehended the foundation establishment stage, the gold core stage, and even the nascent soul stage. Tell me, if you continue to cultivate in the real world, won't you be able to break through to the nascent soul stage soon?" "Really?" Huang Mingxiang raised her face with a smile. Tears still hung on her cheeks. Her beautiful face was like rain hitting a banana leaf, making people feel pity for her. Of course it is." Xiao Hua very naturally used his hand to pinch Huang Mingxiang's nose. However, after pinching, he was stunned. Wasn't this action too intimate? However, Huang Mingxiang enjoyed it very much. She raised her nose and said, "I like it the most when you pinch my nose." Sigh. Xiao Hua was immediately embarrassed. He said in all seriousness, "I am a foundation establishment stage cultivator, your senior. I am treating you as my junior." Tch, Huang Mingxiang rolled her eyes at Xiao Hua in disdain. She turned her head to look around and asked curiously, "Is this the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall? Where are mother and father?" "They are outside the formation. I will remove the formation and they will be able to see us," Xiao Hua replied. Huang Mingxiang bit her lips with her jade-like teeth and said in a low voice, "Husband, this is the last time I will call you husband. Oh, I can really call you husband in the future." "Don't, fellow Taoist Huang. I already have 2 dual cultivation partners." Xiao Hua promptly waved his hand. Since you have 2, can't you have a third?" Huang Mingxiang was really lively and said mischievously. "Let's not talk about this," Xiao Hua replied. "If fellow Taoist Huang is ready, I will remove the formation." "Don't." Huang Mingxiang was very anxious and said hurriedly, "Darling Xiao, let me kiss you again, just a little bit." Huang Mingxiang stretched out her little finger that was as white as a scallion. Xiaohua shook his head. You didn't understand just now. Now that you understand, I can't let you do as you please. As he spoke, he waved his hand and several waves of magic power swept over, about to put away the rabbit formation. I want. Huang Mingxiang suddenly pulled Xiaohua's arm. Don't move, the formation is about to open. Xiaohua said in a frightening manner. Cough cough, Huang Mingxiang's expression also became serious and she promptly sat down. Although the crimson red on her face hadn't disappeared, her bearing was already solemn. Sigh, now my daughter is a boy, so… Xiaohua shook his head helplessly. With a wave of his hand, he put away the dozens of sparkling talismans. Xiaohua didn't notice that Huang Mingxiang was beside him, her nose slightly raised, her little mouth also pouting high, and her pair of watery eyes looking at him. Talismans? Huang Mingxiang saw that Xiaohua actually put away the talismans and couldn't help but be surprised. At this time, Huang Mang, who was outside the restriction, saw that Xiaohua put away the formation and hurriedly removed the restriction as well. In front of everyone, Huang Mingxiang, whose face was slightly red and whose eyes were incomparably quick-witted, was looking at the people of Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Fellow Taoist Huang, fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, Father, Mother, Grandfather. Huang Mingxiang nimbly jumped up from the jade bed and jumped in front of Yang Yu in an instant. She hugged Yang Yu tightly and kissed Yang Yu's face with a smack. Yang Yu saw that her lively daughter had returned. Although she was extremely happy in her heart, she still lightly reprimanded, Don't be like this, why aren't you quickly thanking Senior Xiao? Hee, this boy already thanked Senior Xiao earlier. Huang Mingxiang said as she blinked her eyes at Xiaohua. That's right. Xiaohua saw that Huang Tianle was also trembling with excitement and said with a smile, This Xiao has already saved little friend Huang. Can fellow Huang fulfill the promise? Of course, of course. Huang Tianle extended his hand and passed the sparrow drink on the table to Xiaohua. Immediately after, he fished out a light red jade slip from his bosom. Chapter 1939. Xiaohua took it and scanned it with his divine thought. He smiled and said, Thank you, Cultivator Huang. Sigh, I don't dare. Huang Tianle sighed and said, I didn't expect Cultivator Xiao to wake Xiang up. I was negligent earlier. What a coincidence. I didn't have any confidence at first. Thanks to this guy's reminder. Xiaohua looked at Jing Ziho, who was still standing there and smiled. Huang Tianle sneered. Although the Huang family of Tianmen Mountain is declining, we can't be bullied. I will send people to Meng Kingdom to ask the Zheng family of Ascending Mountain why they came to Tianmen Mountain. Huang Mingxiang, who was not far away, had heard about the danger just now from Yang Yu. Her face was red. She waved her hand as if she was going to throw a yellow talisman at Jing Ziho. Huang Tianle was so scared that he quickly waved his hand and said, Xiang, don't move. This is evidence. Not only will we punish the Zheng family of Ascending Mountain, we will also interrogate them to find out who the mastermind is. This guy got lucky. Huang Mingxiang looked at Xiaohua with her beautiful eyes. Xiaohua quickly turned around and walked back to the table as if he didn't see anything. Congratulations, senior brother. You helped the Huang family get rid of the big trouble. Xue smiled and said charmingly. Huang Mingxiang, who was far away, was also looking at them from afar. Congratulations, senior brother Xiao. Chang Lihao and the others were all red as they bowed and said, I was just lucky. Xiaohua smiled and said, Who are you waiting for? Chang Lihao and the others were stunned when they heard that. Then they were overjoyed. However, after that, they were disappointed. The four of them looked at Chang Xueme. I have a fire attribute body. Chang Xueme was so excited that her face was shining. You got lucky. Xiaohua threw the sparrow drink and the jade bamboo slip to her and said with a smile. You really gave it to me? Chang Xueme took the sparrow drink and asked unconfidently. Actually, your cultivation is not high enough to refine this item. I intend to give it to Chang Lihao. Unfortunately, his body's property does not match. I'm afraid it's not appropriate, Xiao Hua said impolitely. A trace of envy and disappointment flashed in Chang Lihao's eyes. He quickly said, "Thank you, senior brother Xiao, for giving Sister Xueme this celestial device. She is more suitable for this celestial device than I am. I dare not compete with her." "Thank you, senior brother Xiao, for bestowing me with the magic tool." Chang Xueme finally calmed down and bowed toward Xiao Hua. There's no need to be polite. Since you've followed me to Tianmen Mountain, it's fate. Take it." Xiao Hua waved his hand. In the distance, Xie Yuji and the others were dumbfounded. They had gauged the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain, thinking that Xiao Hua was the instigator and wanted to obtain this mystic instrument. But Xiao Hua didn't even look at it before throwing it to a 9th-layer Qi refining female cultivator. This was really beyond their expectations. Could it be that Xiao Hua was just putting on a show? Everyone thought at the same time. On the other hand, Chang Lihao and the others puffed out their chests, their faces full of glory. Although they didn't get the celestial device, Chang Xueme did. She was also a disciple of Mo Yun Village. Mo Yun Village's strength was 1 level higher. Well, everyone, because fellow Taoist Xiao was 1 step ahead and exposed Zheng Ziho's plot. Xiang was also saved by him, which solved the big problem of our Tianmen Mountain. Come, let me propose a toast to fellow Taoist Xiao. Everyone, let's have a toast. Huang Tianle said with a smile on his face. Good, let's toast to fellow Taoist Xiao. Everyone suppressed their emotions and raised their cups. I don't dare. This is Miss Meng Xiang's fate. Even if I didn't come, someone else would. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand, secretly putting the 3rd wine cup into his space. Alright, it's a bit noisy here. I'll open the array of the Vermilion Bird Palace and let Xiang and the others go out to rest. We'll continue the banquet here. Huang Tianle put down the wine cup and slapped his hand. He first took out a light red elixir and swallowed it, then took out the Vermilion Bird statue. However, when Huang Tianle activated his Fa Li and the Vermilion Bird's scarlet brilliance once again sprayed towards the surroundings of the Vermilion Bird Palace, the flames on the walls did not gradually subside as Huang Tianle had expected. Instead, they burned even more fiercely. Ouch! Huang Tianle's face changed slightly. He rolled his eyes and smiled. I just activated the array and consumed a lot of my magic power. Everyone, please wait for a moment. Then he took 2 more elixirs and activated the statue again. Unfortunately, the situation was still the same as before. Fellow Taoist Huang, what's going on? Su Mingyu, who was the closest, had already seen that something was wrong and hurriedly asked, could it be that the array can't be opened? Fellow Taoist Huang. Fellow Taoist Huang. Everyone who had seen the Vermilion Bird Flame Array was shocked and hurriedly asked. This. Huang Tianle smiled bitterly and said awkwardly, really don't know why. I can't open the array. Quick, let Huang Meng open it. Xie Yuqi hurriedly urged. Huang Tianle shook his head. This Vermilion Bird Flame Array can only be opened by Foundation Establishment Huang family disciples. Xiang is only at the peak of Qi refinement, so she can't open it for now. What should we do? Everyone stood up. Tonight was really not safe. Fellow Taoists, don't worry. Huang Tianle said with a smile, although I can't open the array, no one will come in from the outside. With this array protecting us, nothing will happen. As long as I recover my magic power, I'll naturally be able to let everyone out. I see. As soon as Huang Tianle's words came out, many of the panicked cultivators calmed down. Although they were still whispering, the panic on their faces had lessened. Senior brother Xiao. Chang Lihao and the others were a little surprised, but when they saw Xiao Hua sitting there, they felt as if they had eaten a weight. They didn't panic at all and only asked in a low voice, it can't be, something big happened again, right? How would I know? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Today's events were really full of ups and downs. First, it was Shang Qinghe, then it was Jing Ziho. Just as the situation was about to turn around and things were going to be perfect, they encountered the vermilion bird flame array that couldn't be opened. Don't be impatient. Let's wait and see first, Xiaohua said in a low voice, and these words were like a reassuring pill. Chang Limin and the others sat down very quietly. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you really don't show your true colors. You really let me see. Yu Qian, who was at the side, seemed to be a little scared. After hesitating for a long time, he came over and smiled apologetically. Hee, fellow Taoist Yu, didn't I say it was just a coincidence? It's really. Xiaohua spread his hands and said with a smile. How could Yu Qian believe him? He smiled apologetically and said, there seems to be something wrong today. Fellow Taoist Xiao, if there's anything, I hope you can hold back a little. Chapter 1940. Yes, I understand. Xiaohua nodded slightly. Thank you, fellow Taoist Xiao. Yu Qian heaved a sigh of relief. He raised his hand and brought the table closer to Xiaohua. His disciple also sat to the left of Chang Lihao and the others. Fellow Taoists, Huang Tianle still had a smile on his face. My Tianmen Mountain's disciples are to your left. If anything happens, we will definitely be in front of you. Just as Huang Tianle finished speaking, a cultivator's scream came from a corner of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. When everyone looked over, they couldn't help but turn pale with fright. They saw a young male cultivator around the 6th layer of qi, refining, holding his stomach and rolling on the ground in pain. His entire forehead was covered in sweat and his face was abnormally ferocious, as if he was in incomparable pain. Fellow Taoist. Just as the Tianmen Mountain's disciples were about to walk over, they heard the cultivator yell, "It's so painful that I want to die." He clenched his hand tightly on the ground. On his palm, there was an oval-shaped 9-colored spot, which looked very strange. The cultivator's fingernails were all broken by the hard crimson ground. The cultivator raised his head and spat out a mouthful of stinky black blood. He immediately lay on the ground, no longer moving. When the Tianmen Mountain's disciples turned over the cultivator's corpse, they saw that the cultivator's face was covered in black strands. Moreover, his entire face quickly withered and soon shrunk into a ball. Of poison. Suddenly, an unknown cultivator exclaimed in shock. This is the poison of the 9-headed dove. But before this cultivator's voice fell, a series of screams came from the other corners of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Another few cultivators around the 6th layer of qi refining were poisoned. Su Mingyu and the other Foundation establishment cultivators were shocked when they saw this. They hurriedly checked their bodies and found that the poison had already entered their bodies. They couldn't help but be furious. Huang Tianle's face was pale and his eyes were dull. He smiled bitterly and said, "Everyone, not to mention you, have also been poisoned." As he spoke, he raised his hand. Sure enough, on Huang Tianle's palm, a 9-colored spot appeared intermittently. It was the poison of the 9-headed dove. Father, the boy is not poisoned. Huang Liang hurriedly said. Grandfather, the boy didn't either. Huang Mingxiang also said in a low voice, but his gaze was slightly worried as he glanced at Xiaohua. Father, your daughter-in-law doesn't have one either. Yang Yu hurriedly added. Huang Tianle rolled his eyes and raised his voice. Which fellow Taoist hasn't been poisoned yet? Huang Tianle, this is all your fault. With the exception of your son, who else hasn't been poisoned? Several cultivators swore, gnashing their teeth. Reporting to the patriarch, we didn't. The Huang family's disciples standing nearby bowed and said, That's strange. Huang Tianle scratched his head. It was as if yellow mud had fallen into his crotch. He couldn't explain it clearly. And this Xiao hasn't been poisoned. Xiaohua's eyes flashed with anger, but he forcefully suppressed it. He coldly stood up and waved his hand. 3 wine cups filled with dark green spirit wine were lined up in a row. He asked, This Xiao doesn't like spirit wine. I didn't drink these 3 cups of spirit wine. I presume that the 9-headed dove's poison was placed in these spirit wine. Fellow Taoist Huang, how do you explain this? Spirit wine? Huang Tianle looked at the spirit wine on the table and was somewhat surprised. Fellow Taoist Huang, if you don't give this Xiao an explanation and cure my junior sister's poison, don't blame this Xiao for being ruthless and washing Tianmen Mountain with blood. Xiao Hua coldly said. When Huang Mingxiang heard that Xiao Hua hadn't been poisoned, she was happy at first. However, after hearing Xiao Hua's threat, her beautiful eyes looked at the unusually calm Xue Xue. Fellow Taoist Xiao, don't worry. This poison really wasn't done by this Huang. If it was done by this Huang, how could Xiang, Xue, and the others be here? Huang Tianle explained. This spirit wine is from your Tianmen Mountain. It's a banquet for us. Now that the wine is poisoned, how do you explain this? Xie Yuqi sneered. At this moment, a Huang family's disciple said in shock, Patriarch, look at Jing Ziho. When everyone heard this, they immediately looked at Jing Ziho, who had almost been forgotten by everyone. They saw strands of black hair growing from Zheng Ziho's forehead. His sweet smile looked strange and terrifying as the black hair spread. Moreover, on his outstretched hands, 9 colored poison spots appeared. Oh no! Huang Tianle said anxiously. He knew that Jing Ziho had died here. Everything would be hard to explain to the Ascending Mountains Zheng family. Moreover, grandfather, this Jing Ziho was Qi refining stage 8, right? Huang Mingxiang said, Qi refining stage 7 cultivators haven't been poisoned yet. How could he be poisoned? I'm afraid someone wanted him to die early. Do you still need to say it? Someone must have done it. Su Mingyu sneered. This person must be in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. After speaking, he turned to look at Xiao Hua. That's right, fellow Taoist Xiao. Xie Yuqi walked 2 steps forward. Together with Su Mingyu, they stood on both sides of Xiao Hua. He said, in the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, aside from the disciples of the Tianmen Mountains Huang family, you're the only one who hasn't been poisoned. He, and Huang Mingxiang was also awakened by you. I don't think I have such great abilities. I didn't think that an unknown guest of Mo Cloud Village would have such abilities. Shut up for this young master. Xiao Hua said angrily. Don't think that just because this young master is more capable than you, this young master is heavily suspicious. If you annoy this young master, do you believe that I won't kill you right now? When Xiao Hua saw that Xue Xue had been poisoned, he had already been annoyed. Unfortunately, even though he knew how to refine pills, he had never refined a detoxification pill before. He also didn't have a pill recipe for this kind of pill. He was at his wits' end regarding Xue Xue's situation. Now that he saw that he was being suspected, how could he not be angry? Senior brother, Xue Xue said softly, this is this lowly concubine's fate. Why take your anger out on others? Your anger is making this concubine scared. Xiao Hua's eyes widened in anger. It seemed that he was really on the verge of exploding and killing people in an instant. However, when he heard Xue Xue's words, the corner of his eyes twitched a few times. He forced a smile on his face and turned his head to say gently, senior brother is just scaring them. Don't worry, senior brother will definitely be able to detoxify you. After he finished speaking, his mind spun rapidly, trying to find a way to detoxify the poison. At the same time, he rummaged through his space for a jade slip. He had just killed Shang Cheng of the 10,000 Poisons sect and took his storage bag. However, there were many storage bags that didn't belong to him in his space, so he really didn't have time to look through them. Now that he needed to use them, he looked through them to see if there was any way to detoxify the poison. This Xie wants to see. Xie Yushi sneered. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Huang Tianle anxiously say, fellow Taoist Xie, it's useless to say anything else. It's better to quickly think of a way to detoxify the 9-headed dove's poison. Fellow Taoist Xie. Su Mingyu saw that Xiao Hua's anxiousness wasn't fake and hurriedly signaled to Xie Yushi with his eyes. Forget it, today's situation is urgent. This Xie won't lower himself to your level. Xie Yushi snorted and turned to walk towards Huang Tianle. Fellow Taoist Huang, at this point, we naturally have to find the culprit. Only he has the antidote to this poison. Li Mingzhu anxiously said, I don't believe it. Fellow Taoist Huang, don't you have any doubts in your heart right now? This Huang sighed, to be honest, really? I can't think of who would do such a thing. This is simply killing my Tianmen mountain. Huang Tianla also said bitterly. What about fellow Taoist Huang Tianming? Where did he go? Mu Lanshan and Lan Ping, who had been silently thinking, suddenly asked. That's right, what about Huang Tianming? He is the steward of Tianmen Mountain, a foundation establishment cultivator second only to fellow Taoist Huang. Everyone suddenly realized, only he could poison the spirit wine. No, it can't be Tianming. Huang Tianla said firmly, this kind of harmful thing to Tianmen Mountain is definitely not done by him. This Huang can guarantee with his life. But what about Huang Tianming? Where is he? Everyone was talking at once. Now that the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall is sealed by the Great Formation, who can activate this formation other than people from Tianmen Mountain? Who else can do such a thing? Hee. A cold, owl-like voice sounded in the sky above the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. I didn't expect a group of people who are about to die to be able to guess that this was done by this old man. Tuming. Huang Tianla shouted as if he had just woken up. What's going on? How can this be you? It's really Huang Tianming? Not only Xiao Hua, but even Huang Mang and Yang Yu were stunned. Why can't it be me? Huang Tianming's familiar voice sounded in everyone's ears. Huang Tianla, you must have suspected this old man when Shang Qinghe came out, right? At this time, Huang Tianla's face was indescribably bleak, and even a little distressed. He shook his head and said, that thought only flashed through my mind. I definitely didn't think much about you. Hee, the Vermilion Bird Flame Formation can't be used. Other than you, the head of the family, isn't this old man the only one who knows? Who else could have revealed it to Shang Qinghe? Huang Tianming said with a smile, but this old man didn't expect that in the end, you still hid it from this old man. You actually used the Vermilion Bird celestial body and your blood essence to activate the Great Formation. Presumably, the head of the Huang family, who has lost all his blood essence, will die in a few days, right? Father. Huang Mang was shocked. Huang Mengxiang was also shocked. Grandfather? Tianming. Huang Tianla looked like he had aged 10 years. He sat shakily on the chair and murmured, Tianming, Huang Mengxiang's matter was naturally done by this old man. It's a pity that Zheng Ziho was too unlucky. He couldn't be the next head of the Huang family, and was actually taken care of by a little foundation establishment stage from Mo Cloud Village. He can only dream of his own great dreams. Huang Tianming was a little annoyed. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have made it so complicated. In the end, I still have to do it myself. Fellow Taoists, this old man's 9-headed dove poison doesn't have to be activated. If nothing unexpected happens, the antidote will be sent up in a while. If you want to blame someone, blame the little foundation establishment stage from Mo Cloud Village. This guy ruined my plan, so I had to poison you all. Men. Zhu Feng and several other foundation establishment stage cultivators scolded angrily. We came thousands of miles away to help Tianmen Mountain, and you treat us like this? Tianmen Mountain has its own internal conflicts. Why did you poison us? Even if we become ghosts, we won't forgive you. Chapter 1941. Become a ghost? Hee, this old man hasn't seen it yet, but today is the 15th day of the 7th month, the legendary Ghost Festival. If you are fated, then go and become a ghost. Wait until you become a ghost, then come find this old man. Huang Tianming said with a smile. Tianming, I've thought about it for a long time, but I still can't understand why you did this. You have no reason. Huang Tianla said with a bitter smile. Hee, what's there to think about? Huang Tianming sneered. My cultivation is not worse than yours, and my ability to handle the affairs of Tianmen Mountain is 100 times better than yours. Haven't I been working hard for Tianmen Mountain for hundreds of years? What have you done? Where are my children? Why can't they take charge of Tianmen Mountain? You're not Tianming. Hearing this, Huang Tianle immediately stood up from his chair and said angrily, Who are you? Where's Tianming? What did you do to him? Ah? Everyone was stunned. Huang Tianming's voice also calmed down. After a while, he said, This is strange. How do you know that I'm not Huang Tianming? I've been by Huang Tianming's side for 20 years. I've seen all of his actions and remembered them in my heart. Even in the past 10 years, you haven't seen any flaws, have you? Why did you suddenly realize it when I was done today? You're Huang Jingming? Huang Tianle suddenly realized and shouted, 10 years ago, Sai, I understand now. The one who was killed 10 years ago was my brother. You were the one who did it. That's right. You finally thought of this. Huang Tianming's voice sounded. Huang Jingming, the Huang family of Tianmen Mountain has treated you well. We trained you for decades and finally sent you to my brother. In the future, your children will be the children of the Huang family's concubines. Your cultivation seems to have been passed down by the Huang family, right? Why did you do such a thing to kill the children of the Huang family? Hee, do you think this old man will say such things? Huang Jingming's voice was filled with pride. If it wasn't for the fact that this old man wanted to personally witness your deaths and the feast that this old man had designed, this old man wouldn't even have shown himself. Not only was the Huang family of Tianmen Mountain exterminated by this old man, but they were also hunted down by other cultivation families or sections. Not even a blade of grass was left. Hiss, Huang Tianle sucked in a breath of cold air and bitterly smiled. Huang Jingming, from the tone of your voice, I'm afraid you have a great enmity with my Huang clan. However, this old man has never provoked anyone like this in his entire life. How could this old man? It's true that you haven't offended anyone in this lifetime, but what about the previous generation of your Huang family? What about the previous generation? What about the generation before that? Have they always been good people in the country of Xi? Huang Jingming sneered and said, Look at the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Which one of them doesn't have blood on their hands? This old man will kill all of you to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Don't use your divine sense to search for me. I wasn't even in the array. Huang Jingming scolded coldly. Xiaohua and the others could only helplessly withdraw their divine sense. Xiaohua had a lot of jade slips in his hands, but he didn't have any pill recipes. He also didn't have any traces of the detoxification pill. As for the nine-headed dove, there was no record of it. Xiaohua had so many spiritual herbs in his space, but he didn't know which ones were effective. Continuous screams came from a corner not far away. Presumably, they were from low-level qi refining cultivators. Senior Martial Brother. Seeing Xiaohua's gloomy face and the jade slips he kept taking out, Shui took a step forward and reached out to hold Xiaohua's hand. She calmly said, Meeting you is the greatest happiness of this concubine. Being able to accompany you for so long, even at death's door, this concubine is already satisfied. You don't need to worry. Everything is fated, this concubine. Shui. Xiaohua clenched his teeth and looked at the vermilion bird great array. This great array was very strict and imposing. Xiaohua just swept it with his divine sense and knew that this array, which was said to be able to kill nascent soul cultivators, absolutely lived up to its name. With his cultivation, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to break it. There are too many people who can become enemies with my Tianmen Mountain's Huang clan. This Huang really can't guess who you are. Huang Tianle sighed and said, However, there are so many fellow Taoists here. They are all innocent and didn't participate in the grievances between our two clans. Why do you have to drag them into the water? This old man originally didn't plan to do so. Huang Jingming laughed and said, But by a freak combination of factors, they came here. Moreover, their deaths can be exchanged for the destruction of your Huang clan, so why not? Besides, back then when my family was destroyed by your Huang clan, which cultivator in the state of Xi stood up? Now let them be buried with my ancestor. Isn't that what my ancestor did in the underworld? Then he seemed to ponder for a moment and said, Huang Tianle, this old man won't let you die unjustly. Tell me, how do you know that this old man is not Huang Tianming? If you can tell me the reason, this old man can consider telling you who I am. Obviously, Huang Jingming was very conceited about his decades of planning, but he didn't expect that Huang Tianle could still see through the flaw, which made him very puzzled. Alas, this was originally the secret of my Tianmen Mountains Huang clan. No one will know it in Shao Er's generation. Huang Tianle smiled bitterly. Since it has come to this, it's not a big deal to say it. Otherwise, Shao Er won't know his identity in the end. Father? Huang Liang was surprised. In fact, as early as when this old man took over Tianmen Mountain, my father originally wanted Tianming. Huang Tianle ignored Huang Liang, but said tirelessly, Tianming is meticulous, and his cultivation is higher than mine. If Tianmen Mountain is in his hands, it will be much stronger than before. However, Tianming grew up with me and was very attached to me. He felt that Tianmen Mountain was mine, and if he took over Tianmen Mountain, he would be taking away my things. Therefore, he threatened my father with his life, insisting that he didn't want my father to abolish his position. My father had no choice but to change his mind and hand over Tianmen Mountain to me. Tianming also swore that day that he would assist me, his elder brother, for the rest of his life, and would never betray me. Tell me, Tianming didn't want the things that were sent to him back then, so why does he want them now? Maybe he's not satisfied when he sees that your power is monstrous and you control everything. This old man has to discuss everything with Tianmen Mountain with Tianming. Huang Tianle sneered, don't you think that this old man has asked you a lot of things over the years? This is indeed. Moreover, this old man's child died early, and I had no children. Shao Er was adopted by Tianming, so Tianmen Mountain will belong to Shao Er from now on. Tianmen Mountain will belong to Shao, and Tianming will be the heir. How could he take away his son's family business and hand it over to an outsider? Huang Tianle hesitated for a moment, then said, therefore, this old man has never doubted Tianming. Chapter 1942. Father! Huang Liang exclaimed, Why didn't you tell this boy? What's the difference between telling you and not telling you? I loved you as much as your second uncle did, and Xiang and the others grew up in front of me. If it weren't for today's incident, I would have never told you. You evil thief, where is my father's corpse? Huang Liang raised his head and shouted angrily. Haha, I didn't promise to tell you this. Well, it's fine if you don't tell me. Huang Tianle nodded and said, tell me, who are you? How did your Huang clan start? Where did your Huang clan spirit stone veins come from? Huang Jingming's voice became colder and colder. Don't tell me you don't know these things? Spirit stone veins? Huang Tianle pondered. After a moment, he said in astonishment, your surname is Lan? You're the descendant of Lan clan? It's been so many years. You old ghost, you still remember my Lan clan? I really underestimated you. The cultivator called Lan Jingming said in a strange manner. Alas, since you're the descendant of Lan clan, I have nothing to say. Huang Tianle sighed and said, this old man has checked the ancient records of the clan. For tens of thousands of years, my Huang Tianming Huang clan has done many evil things. However, the thing that this old man despises the most is your Lan clan. Lan Jingming laughed wildly and said, unfortunately, my Lan clan was annihilated by your Huang clan, and only a child is left. It's hard to survive on this Xiaoyu continent, and I don't know how many natural and man-made disasters have happened, but my Lan clan hasn't been completely wiped out. Alas, the heavens are unfair. Why did your Huang clan decline until now? Why can't my Lan clan produce a cultivation genius? It was only at this point that he could kill his enemies with his own hands. All the glory of your Tianmen Mountains Huang clan should belong to my Lan clan. How can you deny it? Of course, it was your Lan clan's ancestor who discovered the spirit stone veins. If it weren't for my Huang clan's ancestor, I'm afraid this place would be the foundation of your Lan clan. Huang Tianle admitted without hesitation, But, since you've already tasted the hardships of the world and been haunted by hatred, why do you have the heart to inflict this pain on others? The Huang family of Tianmen Mountain will bear your wrath and release all the other fellow Taoists. How about that? Haha, how is that possible? Lan Jingming smiled and said, you can all die in there. This old man has already explained the whole story clearly. This old man wants to see how many of you can turn into evil spirits and cause trouble for this Lan. After that, there was no more sound from the array. Sigh, fellow Taoists. I've implicated all of you. Huang Tianle sighed and cupped his hands. At this time, no one cared about the enmity between the Huang and Lan clans. All they wanted was to get rid of their poison. However, the nine-headed dove's poison was famous in the Xiaoyu continent and was extremely rare. Many cultivators had brought along antidotes, but none of their antidotes were effective. Suddenly, Xiaohua's eyes lit up and the jade slip in his hand stopped. After looking at it for a moment, he waved his hand and took out a pink jade bottle. He opened it and sniffed it with his nose before handing it to Xue Xue. He transmitted his voice. This is the antidote of the 10,000 poison sect. It is said to be able to cure all poisons. Sigh, this 10,000 poison sect doesn't live up to its name. They don't even have an antidote for the nine-headed dove. They only have some poison techniques and poison methods. Thank you, husband. Xue Xue took the jade bottle and looked at it. She frowned and said, husband, there are only 3 pills inside, but there are 6 of us. Take it first and see if it is effective. If it is effective, let the 2 female cultivators of the Chang clan take it first. I will think of a way. Xiao Hua said very decisively. Xue Xue poured out a pill from the jade bottle. She frowned as she looked at the dark and smelly pill. She swallowed it and a bitter and indescribable taste came from her mouth. Xiao Hua looked at her with concern. After waiting for a moment, Xue Xue's eyes flashed with joy. She raised her hand and transmitted her voice. The 10,000 poison sect is really powerful. Although it can't completely cure the nine-headed dove's poison, my life should be safe. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, the remaining poison can be refined with magic power. Give the pills to Chang Yulian and the others. Yes, husband. Xue Xue smiled and said, but this antidote is really bitter and smelly. If you didn't look at the jade slip, I would have thought it was poison. Oh, Xiao Hua's face was filled with joy. He seemed to have thought of something and quickly took out another jade slip. Xue Xue handed the jade bottle to Chang Xueme and transmitted her voice to her. Naturally, Chang Xueme and Chang Yulian were overjoyed. They reached out to take it. At the same time, Xue Xue transmitted this matter to Chang Lihao and the others. Sure enough, Chang Lihao and the others didn't hesitate at all. They immediately nodded and agreed with Xiao Hua's opinion. Although Xiao Hua didn't particularly care, he was secretly happy when he saw that Chang Lihao and the others were very affectionate. He didn't help the Chang family for nothing. Xiao Hua took out a jade slip and looked at it for a moment. He transmitted his voice to Xue Xue and said, Wife, I found a way, but I don't know if it will be effective. Tell me. Although Xue Xue had already cured the poison, she was still happy when she heard that there was a way. As the saying goes, fight poison with poison. If we use another kind of poison to cure the nine-headed dove's poison, it should be effective, right? Ah. Really? Xue Xue nodded, but then she frowned. However, we have to consider the details. Otherwise, if one poison doesn't work, we'll add another. Won't he die faster? Hee, we don't need to try. Xiao Hua looked at Chang Lihao and the others. Although their cultivation was shallow, they were still above the 10th layer of the qi refining realm. For the time being, they didn't show any signs of being poisoned. He got up and walked towards Huang Tianle. Huang Tianle seemed to have given up. He just sat on a chair with Huang Mang, Yang Yu, and Huang Mingxiang beside him. His face was slightly sad, and Huang Mang's face was extremely gloomy. Xie Yujiang and the other Foundation Establishment cultivators from Cultivation sects and Chu Yuchang and the other Foundation Establishment cultivators from Cultivation families were divided into 2 groups. They sat together and discussed something in low voices. However, everyone was frowning. Obviously, they didn't have any useful ideas. When Huang Tianle saw Xiaohua coming, he quickly stood up and cupped his hands. Fellow Taoist Xiao, thank you for saving Xiang. Unfortunately, because of my Huang family's matter, I'm afraid you'll be implicated. Then he turned around and said, oh right, Xiang, come and thank fellow Taoist Xiao for his kindness. I wanted to wait until tomorrow morning to thank you, but it seems I won't have the chance. Huang Mingxiang stared at Xiaohua and walked over with light steps. He bowed and said, this servant thanks Xiao Senior for his kindness. This servant made Yang Yu frown. Huang Mingxiang bowed and winked at Xiaohua, making Xiaohua feel quite embarrassed. Hee, get up, little friend Huang. You didn't forget to thank me in the restriction just now. Xiaohua waved his hand and didn't let Huang Mingxiang kneel. Huang Mingxiang took the opportunity to straighten up and naughtily stuck out his tongue. He turned around and walked to Yang Yu's side, acting like an innocent and lively girl. Fellow Taoist Xiao, what's the matter? Huang Tianle smiled apologetically and said, this Huang has already given my most powerful magic tool to fellow Taoist. There's nothing else that can satisfy fellow Taoist. Fellow Taoist Huang doesn't have it, but this Xiao has it. Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. He took out a jade bottle and handed it to Huang Tianle. What's this? Huang Tianle took it with a puzzled expression. He opened the jade bottle and a faint fishy smell spread out from the jade bottle. Huang Tianle stared at it and scanned it with his divine sense. He still didn't understand and looked at Xiaohua strangely. This is the poison of the azure python. Xiaohua said indifferently. Azure python? Poison? Huang Tianle frowned at first, but then he came to a realization. He was pleasantly surprised and said anxiously, the azure python is a famous poisonous creature in my country of Xi. The poison that an adult azure python spits out is something that even foundation establishment cultivators can't resist. Although it's inferior to the nine-headed dove, but it can be used to fight poison with poison. Unfortunately, this Xiao is not a doctor nor an alchemist, so I can't use it to make an antidote. I also don't know how to use poison to fight poison, so I'll give it to fellow Taoist Huang. Xiaohua said with regret. He didn't finish reading the jade slip of the 10,000 poison sect, so he really couldn't find a way to use poison to fight poison, so he didn't dare to say anything. Seeing Xiaohua walk over, Xie Yuji and Chu Yuchang's groups naturally paid attention. By the time Huang Tianle's words reached their ears, a few people had already separated themselves from the two groups and walked over. Fellow Taoist Xiao, this Huang has some experience in using it in his early years. If fellow Taoist is not worried, you can let this Huang test it. Huang Tianle held the jade bottle in his hand and said to Xiaohua with a smile on his face, if this succeeds, this Huang will immediately detoxify the disciples of Mo Yun village. Good. Xiaohua clapped and said, fellow Taoist Huang, using your own body to test the poison can make up for your negligence. Huang Tianle understood and bowed. He was extremely grateful and said, fellow Taoist Xiao, thank you for giving me this opportunity. However, this is fellow Taoist Zhao's merit, so I don't dare to take it all for myself. Fellow Taoist Huang, what is this? Xie Yuji and the others came forward and wanted to take the jade bottle from Huang Tianle's hand. Xiaohua knew that Huang Tianle's Dharma body had used up all of his essence blood and didn't have much magic power left. He snorted and rubbed his right thumb and middle finger together. A ray of magic power shot out and blocked Xie Yuji and Huang Tianle. Fellow Taoist Xie, what is the meaning of this? Xiaohua said coldly, you want to steal my item in front of me? Why would I want to steal your item? Xie Yuji was a bit scared, but he looked at the other foundation establishment cultivators who came with him and said, Mo Yun village and our cultivation sects all have people who are poisoned. Since you have a detoxification method, you should share it with us and see if it works. Chapter 1943. Hearing Xie Yuji's soft words, Xiaohua was too lazy to argue with him and only said, this is something I gave to fellow Huang. Don't have any other thoughts or else I won't be polite. So what if you're not polite? A cultivator from a big family scolded, "A little foundation establishment, what are you being arrogant for in front of us? Aren't you afraid we'll kill you?" Xiaohua looked at that guy with disdain and ignored him. Sure enough, someone next to that cultivator immediately persuaded, "We're all on the same boat, why bother?" That cultivator snorted and sat down, watching coldly. Huang Tianle looked at everyone, thought for a bit and said, "This is fellow Zhao's jade bottle, it contains the poison of the green python." Without waiting for Huang Tianle to finish, everyone understood. Their faces showed joy as they shouted, "Good, the heavens never bars one's way. Ha, I'm willing to use my body to test the poison and see if I can cure the poison of the nine-headed dove." Huang Tianle and the others stopped cheering and said with a smile, "Fellow Huang, don't worry." In the distance, a 10th layer qi refining middle-aged cultivator shouted, "Junior is Mudu, here is an ancient recipe, it's a secret method to make poison, but I've never used it before. Junior has been thinking about it, but I can't find a poison that matches the nine-headed dove. Now that we have the poison of the green python, Junior is willing to offer this recipe." Good, everyone is collecting firewood, the fire is really strong. Hearing this, Xiaohua was overjoyed. Since there was a secret method, it was much better than Huang Tianle's trial and error. Sure enough, Mudu handed over a silk-like item to Huang Tianle. Looking at the small jade bottle in Huang Tianle's hand, he smiled and said, "If it works, Senior Huang, Senior Xiao, please cure Junior's poison first." Of course, Huang Tianle didn't discuss with Xiaohua and nodded. Seeing that there was a highly toxic poison and a secret formula to detoxify it, everyone's hopes soared. Subconsciously, they all rushed over. As for the cultivator who had just reprimanded Xiaohua, he became somewhat restless and kept looking over. "Disciples of the Huang family, please come and maintain order," Huang Liang shouted when he saw that the situation was getting out of control. Yes, many of the Huang family's disciples who weren't poisoned answered and stood in various places of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Although they were very scattered, it was clear that they had practiced this many times. The cultivators of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall were separated by the disciples of the Huang family. Their emotions were calm, but they didn't sit down. Instead, they quietly watched. At this moment, a few more low-level qi refinement cultivators were poisoned to death. Their painful cries echoed throughout the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Under everyone's gaze, Huang Tianle opened the silk cloth, squinted his eyes, and carefully read the words on it word by word. After a while, just when everyone was getting impatient, Huang Tianle closed his eyes again and seemed to be thinking carefully. Alas, it really is an ancient technique. It's really strange. If I didn't look at the silk, I absolutely wouldn't have been able to think of such a method. When Huang Tianle opened his eyes, a trace of astonishment flashed through his eyes. Sighing, he casually, unintentionally, handed the silk to Xiaohua. Then, with a stretch of his hand, a drop of transparent liquid with traces of blood flew out from the jade bottle. Xiaohua took the silk cloth and was clearly stunned. Mudu was on the other side of Huang Tianle. When Mudu saw that Huang Tianle had mistakenly handed the silk cloth to Xiaohua, he raised his eyebrows and reached out as if he wanted to take it. How could Xiaohua let go of the secret method that was delivered to his door? Xiaohua glanced at Mudu and unfolded the silk cloth without any hesitation and read it word by word. Mudu's hand reached out, but his fingers were slightly trembling and he couldn't say a word. Huang Tianle took out a drop of the green python's venom and flicked his hand. The venom did not enter his mouth, but instead floated in midair. Huang Tianle reluctantly mobilized his spiritual power, and several strange-looking spells hit the venom. The venom was gradually divided into 10 portions. Then, with a point of his hand, one portion flew to Huang Tianle's forehead. The moment the venom touched Huang Tianle's wrinkled forehead, it immediately seeped into it. In an instant, several black threads flowed down his forehead, and it really looked like he was bitten by the green python. But when the black strands reached Huang Tianle's neck, several strands of 9 colored stripes appeared under his neck and rushed towards the black strands and quickly tangled together. Just as everyone expected, the pitch-black black lines and the 9 colored stripes gradually disappeared. When the black lines disappeared, the 9 colored stripes rushed up again. They saw Huang Tianle pointing at the venom in front of him again, and another portion flew into his forehead. It wasn't until Huang Tianle used 8 portions of the green python's poison that the 9 colored stripes on his chin disappeared completely. Great kindness. Huang Tianle clapped his hands and said, I've neutralized most of the poison in my body. The rest is nothing to worry about. However, using poison to neutralize poison is an unconventional method. I have to use this secret method. Otherwise, the 2 poisons won't be able to neutralize each other. It will only be poison on poison. Senior Huang, Junior can use the green python's poison to neutralize the poison? Mudu asked urgently. Of course. Huang Tianle pointed his finger and a drop of green python's poison flew in front of Mudu. Mudu didn't dare to hesitate and cast a seal. The situation was very similar to Huang Tianle's, but he only used 7 portions to neutralize the poison in his body. Thank you, fellow Taoist Huang. Mudu bowed in front of everyone. No need to thank me. This green python's poison belongs to fellow Taoist Xiao. Huang Tianle pointed at Xiaohua. Thank you, fellow Taoist Xiao. Mudu bowed again. Xiaohua smiled and put the silk in his hand. No need, your secret method is not bad. Fellow Taoist, are you interested in making a deal with me? What deal? Mudu was surprised. Fellow Taoist, just wait a bit. Xiaohua smiled. At this time, seeing that Huang Tianle and the nameless cultivator had neutralized the poison, the crowd became noisy again. Fellow Taoist Huang, quickly give us the poison. Senior Huang, quickly tell us how to neutralize poison with poison. Huang Tianle was about to speak when Xiaohua waved his hand and said, Fellow Taoists, don't worry. Fellow Taoist Huang's jade bottle only has 4 or 5 drops of green python's poison. It can save 6 people at most. What? Only a little bit? Xie Yusin was shocked. Why didn't you say so earlier? Why should I say so earlier? Xiaohua was surprised. This is my own poison. Why should I tell you how much there is? Xiaohua originally wanted to take out the venom to help everyone detoxify the poison, but after hearing what that cultivator said, he changed his mind. In this world, no matter how precious something was, as long as it was obtained without paying a price, who would cherish it? Chapter 1944. What is the meaning of this, fellow cultivator Xiao? Xie Yuqi asked coldly with a gloomy face. Nothing. Xiaohua reached out his hand and took the jade bottle from Huang Tianle's hand. He said, Fellow Taoists, although you were innocently dragged into the grudge between the Huang and Lan clans, this wasn't something that fellow Taoist Huang could decide. We can't blame fellow Taoist Huang, we can only blame Lan Jingming. Of course, since this fellow Taoist and I have the antidote, I naturally won't be stingy and will definitely help all of you. However, since I'm going to give you all such precious green python venom, shouldn't you all show some appreciation? What? Xie Yuqi and the others were dumbfounded. They really didn't expect Xiaohua to do this. Fellow Taoists, please take your time to think about it. I'm going to help all of you. As Xiaohua spoke, he pulled the wooden boat towards Chang Lihao and the others. As he turned around, he scanned the entire Vermilion Bird Palace hall with his divine consciousness. He opened his mouth slightly and the dream executioner flying sword flashed. It followed his Taoist robe to his feet and disappeared. Chang Lihao and the others were overjoyed when they saw Xiaohua. There were too many joys and sorrows today that these qi refining disciples couldn't take it anymore. Then, Xiaohua used Mudu's secret technique to detoxify Chang Lihao, Chang Limin, and Chang Liqiang's poison. When Chang Liqiang bowed and thanked Xiaohua, Yuchuan quickly went forward and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Xiao, yes, I know. Xiaohua didn't even look and waved his hand. Another drop of poison appeared. When Xiaohua finished detoxifying Yuchuan and his disciples, a timid voice came from the side. Senior Xiao, this junior's cultivation is too shallow. I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for long. This junior's spirit stones and yellow talismans, if Senior Xiao likes them, A little 7th-layer qi refining cultivator was pitifully handing over some things to Xiao Hua, while the poisonous spots on the 9-headed dove in his hand were growing larger and larger. "Don't be impatient. Sit down." Xiao Hua smiled. After the little cultivator sat down, Xiao Hua wasted a bit of his magic power to detoxify the cultivator's poison without saying a word. Then he looked at the spirit stones and yellow talismans, blinked, and said, "I can't accept these things, but there are no rules. You're the first, so I'll be thick-skinned." I don't dare. The young cultivator gratefully said, "It's a pity that I don't have anything else, otherwise, I would have given everything to Senior." "Alright." Xiao Hua pulled his hand and split it in half, saying to Mu Du, "Fellow Taoist Mu, how about we split it in half?" "Ah? But..." Mu Du opened his mouth and nodded in agreement. He really hadn't thought of this. Senior Xiao. All the aura refining cultivators were overjoyed. They shouted and rushed over. "Huang clan's disciples, help maintain order. According to your cultivation base, from the lowest to the highest. Prepare your spirit stones and other things." Xiao Hua didn't hold back at all as he loudly ordered. "Do as Senior Xiao said quickly." Huang Liang saw this and immediately ordered. "From the lowest to the highest cultivation base, you also need to prepare your spirit stones." Huang Mingxiang stood not far away, holding Yang Yu's arm with his hand, watching Xiao Hua's actions with great interest. "Fellow Taoists, yeah, look at this guy." Li Mingzhu was a bit annoyed and whispered, "He actually robbed on the spot. Saving people is one thing, but taking people's spirit stones on the spot, what's the big deal? And he doesn't even put us in his eyes, letting these low-level cultivators." Huang Tianle next to fellow Taoist Li laughed. At this juncture, since he can turn the tide, why care about such trifles? And the low-level cultivators are poisoned first. Who do you think should be detoxified first? But how long will it take for him to detoxify the poison by himself? We've already learned the secret technique, won't we be able to help others? Xie Yuxing also complained. A secret technique is naturally a secret technique. If others know, how can it be a secret technique? Huang Tianle shook his head and said, "This secret technique is Mu Du's. Who knows if Mu Du is willing? Can he not be willing?" Immediately, a foundation establishment cultivator sneered. "I'm afraid this is fellow Taoist Zhao's misgivings?" Huang Tianle replied without any trace of politeness. "Senior Xiao, there should be other considerations." Huang Mingxiang, who had been watching Xiao Hua's actions with a smile, suddenly said, "Xiang Air." Yang Yu scolded, "You've just recovered from a long illness, it's better if you don't talk too much." "Other considerations?" Huang Tianle was stunned, then immediately realized and said in shock, "Fellow Taoist Xiao." Sure enough, at this moment, they heard a cry of surprise from the Vermilion Bird Flame Formation, Xiao Hua's bastard son. "You dare to spoil this old man's plans again and again. This old man just left for a moment, and you actually helped others detoxify the poison? If this old man doesn't take your life, how can I be worthy of the thousands of lives of my Lan family?" Following Lan Jingming's angry roar, the formation runes on the roof of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall gradually began to flash with a vermilion brilliance, with the same power as when Huang Tianle activated the formation just now. "Io, how can he activate the formation?" Huang Tianle also cried out in surprise. "This formation can only be activated by my Huang family's bloodline." But the roaring flames on the four walls of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall had already covered Huang Tianle's cry of surprise. "All of you, get out of the way first." Xiao Hua's divine sense had always been exposed outside, but when he heard Lan Jingming appear in the formation, he immediately flicked his sleeve, and his figure floated up to the roof of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Fellow Taoist Xiao is indeed a benevolent person. Huang Tianle's face was filled with indescribable astonishment and amazement. In his entire life, he had probably never seen such a benevolent and righteous cultivator. And Huang Mingxiang's mischievous pair of big eyes stared at Xiao Hua's thin and tall figure with incomparable worship. his two delicate hands slightly clenched, as if he was abnormally worried. Hee, this young master has been waiting for you for a long time. I didn't expect you to come out now. Xiaohua's body was in midair, and he coldly said, "This young master definitely doesn't care about the grievances between you and the Huang family. You know how to activate the formation and detoxify all the cultivators, then you and I will go our separate ways." Haha, Lan Jingming's figure did not appear, but his arrogant voice reverberated in the formation. A mere foundation establishment cultivator actually dares to be so arrogant. This old man will let you see what is called a method. Wung wung, a burst of sound, and the flames on the roof of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall burned fiercely. The pattern of the vermilion bird on the roof of the palace hall became more and more dazzling, gradually emerging from the top. Sigh. The vermilion bird sculpture that Huang Tianle placed on the table at this time also gradually emitted traces of brilliance along with the changes in the formation. Huang Tianle understood that he was already powerless to activate the formation, and Lan Jingming's side was very obvious. He had already obtained the other sculpture that Huang Tianming should have. Squeak! A cry sounded, and the flaming vermilion bird took shape once again. However, just like before, the pressure that assaulted Xiaohua's face made him feel suffocated, but the appearance of the vermilion bird was still blurry. Xiaohua slapped his forehead, and also released his own pressure. He forcefully endured the pressure that was comparable to a gold core cultivator's pressure, and his entire body trembled in midair. Lan Jingming's figure appeared on the back of the vermilion bird fire ape. Unexpectedly, it was still Huang Tianming's appearance. What an ignorant child. Even if you detoxified the poison of these people, so what? This old man only needs to sacrifice Huang Tianming's blood essence, and all of you will be killed by this old man. Possession? Huang Tianle was so angry that he trembled, and he pointed his finger at Lan Jingming and shouted, "You can activate my Huang family's formation, isn't it because you used Tianming's blood essence?" Possession. Hearing these words, Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he directly stared at Lan Jingming's eyes. The pity that he previously had for Lan Jingming had already disappeared. Hee, what do you think? Huang Tianle, if not for this, how could this old man trap all of you in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall? If not for this, how could this old man discover the final secret of the Vermilion Bird formation? Unfortunately, this old man's cultivation is still a bit lacking, and Huang Tianming's memory is missing too much. Otherwise, how could there be so many mistakes? Lan Jingming clapped his hands, and a crimson ring flew up into the air. Then, the numerous flames on the array were torn apart by the ring. Vermilion Bird Ring. Where did you find it? Huang Tianle was shocked once again. Lan Jingming laughed. Naturally, this old man's ancestor killed your Huang family's ancestor, and I obtained it. Do you still need this old man to explain? Below Xiaohua, Xie Yuji and the others also took action. Each of them took out their magic tools and wanted to fly into the air. If this old man was you, I would quietly stay down there. If this old man was defeated by Xiaohua, you all might have a chance to survive. But if you all go up and help, this old man will activate the Vermilion Bird formation. You all saw how Shang Qinghe was killed just now, right? Ask yourself, can you withstand the Vermilion Bird's attack? Lan Jingming seemed to be not nervous, and said casually. This. Xie Yuji and the others' faces changed greatly. At this moment, the whole place was filled with the pressure of the Vermilion Bird. Although they were not as weak as Xiaohua, when they thought about how the Foundation Establishment middle stage Shang Qinghe was not a match for the Vermilion Bird's flames, how could they dare to go up? Seniors, if this old man kills Senior Xiao, we will have no way to survive. Since that is the case, why not take a gamble? At this moment, Huang Mingxiang said in a clear voice, "This guy has taken over my grandfather's body. Although he can activate the Vermilion Bird formation, he may not be able to use the Vermilion Bird Dharma body. Even if he uses the Vermilion Bird Dharma body and his body's blood essence, when we are killed, he will be on the verge of death. Such a method of mutual destruction, why not? Yes, the little girl is right. This old woman will take the gamble." Lei Puli, who had been keeping a low profile all this time, roared angrily. Her figure fluttered, and under the enormous might of the vermilion bird, she tried her best to fly to Xiao Hua's side. Her head full of white hair fluttered with the wind. This old man will also come. Qi Mingzong Zhu Feng also laughed. Since we are going to die, why not die with a bang? That's right. We will advance and retreat together with fellow Xiao. Su Mingyu and the others immediately came to their senses. One by one, they shouted and tried their best to activate their magic power, rushing to the top of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. At this moment, everyone's cultivation was immediately revealed. Although they tried their best, not a single person could get close to Xiaohua. They were all scattered around Xiaohua. Chapter 1945. Lan Jingming was clearly panicking, but he immediately clenched his teeth and said, "Since all of you want to die, then this old man will fulfill your wish. Either way, I will kill all of you, and this old man's revenge will be considered complete." As he spoke, Lan Jingming waved his hand, and the ring of vermilion bird flashed with a brilliant light. A ring of fire enveloped Xiaohua, and Lan Jingming himself flew to the side. His body shook, and a faint vermilion bird celestial body was actually released by him. Seeing the vermilion bird celestial body, Huang Tianle's last bit of hope was shattered. No one knew the power of the vermilion bird celestial body better than him. With this celestial body, even the city lord of Haoming City would not force him too much. Xiaohua and the other Foundation establishment cultivators could only end up being killed. Go! Xiaohua also didn't hesitate. With a clap of his hand, the yang leaf fan appeared from the space. Stirring his magic power, he fanned it over. Although the yang leaf fan was only a magic tool, in Xiaohua's hand, it instantly absorbed a large amount of fire attribute spiritual energy. A fire dragon that was even larger than the vermilion bird ring's fire ring roared as it rushed over. Roar! In the blink of an eye, the fire dragon rushed into the ring of fire. It only paused for a moment, as if it was being suppressed by the ring of vermilion bird. Then, it suddenly expanded, broke through the ring of fire, and flew straight through the ring of vermilion bird. Ah? Lan Jingming's body was slightly sluggish, and his expression was extremely shocked. He originally had two plans. If the ring of vermilion bird could kill Xiaohua, he naturally wanted to escape with his life. But since Xiaohua was so fierce that even a treasure like the ring of vermilion bird could not suppress him, Lan Jingming knew that he was definitely not a match for him. Therefore, he resolutely shook his body, and the faint vermilion bird celestial body rushed into the huge vermilion bird formed by flames. Just as the vermilion bird celestial body left Lan Jingming's body, a pale green brilliance flashed from the left side of Lan Jingming's body. Then, it turned into 16 rays of brilliance in the blink of an eye. These 16 rays of brilliance were like the blooming of an epiphyllum. Then, they quickly rushed towards Lan Jingming. It was Xiaohua's dream executor. At this moment, the execution dream had 16 sword beams. It was very different from the previous 8 sword beams. Although the 8 sword beams were powerful, they were still the power of a single sword beam. It was far from the power of the sword array demonstrated in the sword playing the world. Ever since Xiaohua's battle with Shang Cheng, he had been pondering and comprehending the sword array. Today, the situation was critical. In order to kill Lan Jingming in an instant, he absolutely could not make the slightest mistake. Moreover, he could not show off too much in front of so many cultivators. Thus, Xiaohua had released the execution dream from the very beginning. It had been lying in ambush at the side of the great array. Lan Jingming felt as if he was unable to escape. He saw the 16 rays of light surrounding him and rapidly stabbing towards him. He didn't know how to dodge them. Protect! Lan Jingming forcefully clapped his hands, and a shiny piece that looked like a talisman appeared in his hand. He slightly activated his magic power and hid it on his body. At the same time, Lan Jingming looked at the celestial body that was about to rush into the flames of the vermilion bird celestial body, and his eyes showed a hint of anxiety. Go! Xiaohua did his best to activate his sword technique, and the dream executioner became even faster. Poo, pew, pew. A series of sounds could be heard. A few of the dream executioner's flying swords were blocked by Lan Jingming, and more than 10 extremely sharp Dao laws pierced into his Taoist robes. A faint light flashed around his body, and without any more resistance, they pierced into his body. But at this moment, Lan Jingming's vermilion bird celestial body also entered the flames of the vermilion bird. Everyone in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall suddenly felt an irresistible heat wave, and a pressure that made everyone despair came from the flames of the Vermilion Bird's celestial body. Xiao Hua, who bore the brunt of the pressure, felt the true yuan in his meridians solidify. The magic power around him seemed to be unable to move. His body that had been baptized by the lightning tribulation also became weak. The phoenix celestial body hidden within his body was also trembling. 13200 black dots, whether it was the physical body or the celestial body, were all slightly trembling. They seemed to be on the verge of collapse. The dragon vein that had been driven by the dragon transformation art was also suppressed to the point that it couldn't move at all. Damn it. It's said to be able to kill a nascent soul stage cultivator. Sure enough, your reputation is well deserved. My Jin Dan stage cultivation base is still not enough. At this moment, Xiao Hua's divine sense was completely suppressed by the flames of the vermilion bird. He couldn't command the execution dream at all. He bitterly laughed in his heart and closed his eyes. He knew that he had no other choice. He felt that the heat that pierced his heart was already in front of him. Xiao Hua didn't have the strength to fight back. Just as Xiao Hua was about to be turned into ashes in the flames of the vermilion bird's celestial body, a heart-wrenching scream came from Lan Jingming's mouth. This scream was filled with unwillingness and grief. It was so loud that everyone's ears were ringing and their hearts were shaking. Xiao Hua, on the other hand, felt the heat that was already in front of him. He immediately froze. The pressure that was suppressing all of his divine sense also stopped. When Xiao Hua opened his eyes to take a look, that pressure, that suffocating feeling, and that heat that was assaulting his face were like the receding tide of the sea, gradually dissipating. Xiao Hua ignored the scattering of the vermilion bird celestial body and the vermilion bird celestial body that was retracting back to the roof of the vermilion bird celestial body. He ignored the dimming of the vermilion bird celestial body under the fire dragon of Yi Yang's fan. He only looked at Lan Jingming's corpse that had fallen into the air under the 16 rays of light of the execution dream's sword formation. Lan Jingming's eyes were wide open and filled with sorrow. This? Whose fault is this? Xiao Hua sighed. He waved his hand and the vermilion bird's celestial body flew into his hand. The execution dream once again turned into a ray of light and fell to the ground along with Lan Jingming's corpse. The vermilion bird's celestial body was a palm-sized ring. There were 9 vivid and lifelike vermilion bird diagrams on it. Inside and outside the diagrams, tiny runes were densely engraved. A layer of flickering flames revolved around the entire vermilion bird celestial body, as if there was a boundless universe inside. Everyone in the vermilion bird celestial body held their breaths. They did not dare to say a single word. They only raised their heads and looked at Xiao Hua, who was standing in the air with complicated gazes. After half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoists, continue to detoxify the poison. Prepare the spirit stones and other items." Everyone was happy at first, but then, they were stunned. Huang Tianle smiled bitterly. He originally wanted to let the Huang family disciples take a look at Lan Jingming's corpse and see if there was any antidote on him. However, after hearing Xiao Hua's words, how could he let the disciples go? Alright, since Xiao Hua was willing to detoxify the poison for everyone, then everyone could only do the same as before. They lined up in order and took out spirit stones and other items. They also let Xiao Hua detoxify the poison. No one mentioned Lan Jingming's matter. Chapter 1946. After a meal, half of the aura refining disciples had been detoxified. Huang Mingxiang skipped to Xiao Hua's side and said with a smile, "Senior Xiao, detoxifying the poison here alone. Is it too tiring? Do you want me to help you?" Looking at Huang Mingxiang's appearance, Xiao Hua felt a headache. He waved his hand and said, "It's fine. Hee, thank you for saving me again." Huang Mingxiang rolled his eyes and said, "Little fellow Taoist Huang, is there something wrong?" "Hee, I came to ask on behalf of my grandfather. Lan Jingming, that old bastard, deserved to die. However, his remains belong to my little grandfather. My Huang clan can't let him be humiliated. Senior Xiao." "You see," Huang Mingxiang said without any trace of politeness. Xiao Hua woke up. Although the one who died was Lan Jingming, his remains were still Huang Tianming's. How could Huang Tianla not care? "I was careless. You can go and tidy up. If you have any antidote, you can take it out and use it." Xiao Hua nodded. "Hee, Senior Xiao is easy to talk to. Thank you." Huang Mingxiang winked at Xiao Hua and quickly ran back. After getting Xiao Hua's agreement, Huang Tianla quickly ordered the Huang clan disciples to tidy up. Unfortunately, Lan Jingming was such a cautious person. How could he leave the antidote on his body? Su Mingyu and the others were obviously disappointed. They asked in a low voice, "Fellow Taoist Huang, can you open the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's formation? We can go out and get some fresh air." Fellow Taoist Huang can also find someone to go to Lan Jingming's residence to look for the antidote. Huang Tianla took out his vermilion bird statue and activated it. He smiled bitterly and said, "I just used a lot of magic power to detoxify the poison. I don't have enough magic power right now. Please wait for a moment." Soon after, he glanced at the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's flame and said, "Moreover, everyone is poisoned. Aside from me, no one else can open the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. It is an excellent shelter. Wouldn't it be better to wait until fellow Taoist Xiao detoxifies everyone's poison before opening the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall?" "Sigh, okay." Su Mingyu and the rest were afraid that something would happen to Huang Tianla. They couldn't even leave the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, so they naturally wanted to urge him. However, seeing that Huang Tianla really didn't have any magic power, they could only wait. 2 hours later, Xiao Hua successfully cured every one of the 9-headed doves. He and Mu Du had 2 storage pouches on the table. "Ha!" Xiao Hua waved his hand and threw his 2 storage pouches to Chang Li Hao. He smiled and said, "I can't be a guest of Mo Cloud Village for free. Take these." "Thank you, Senior Brother Xiao." Chang Li Hao was overjoyed. His respect had already turned into worship. Xiao Hua pointed at Mu Du and said, "Fellow cultivator Mu, take care of your storage pouch. You deserve it." "Yes, thank you, Senior Xiao." Mu Du nodded and kept the storage bag. At this time, Huang Tianla left again. He bowed and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, this old man doesn't know what to say. I really didn't think that Mo Cloud Village would have someone as great as you. You didn't know before, but you'll know in the future." Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. He looked around and said, "Fellow Taoist Huang, you should open the formation of the Vermilion Bird Palace. I'm afraid everyone here is already worried." Fellow Taoist Xiao, please wait a moment. I'll open it now," Huang Tianla said as he took out the Vermilion Bird statue. "I'll tell the disciples to change the banquet and remake the spirit wine and spirit fruits. I'll properly thank fellow Taoist Xiao, and also apologize to everyone here. I'm afraid no one will dare to drink your Huang family's spirit wine anymore." Xiao Hua watched as the Vermilion Bird statue spat out flames once again. The flames on the 4 walls of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall gradually subsided, finally revealing the palace doors. Moreover, under Huang Tianla's intention, 8 huge doors simultaneously appeared in 8 directions of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, all of them open. Kacha, a sudden clap of thunder resounded. Just as the entrance of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall was revealed, the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall lit up. Immediately after, the pitter-patter of raindrops and banana leaves filled everyone's ears. "It's raining," Xiao Hua's divine sense slightly swept and understood. "Moreover, it's a thunderstorm with lightning and thunder." Fellow Taoist Huang, we didn't do anything today. Instead, we gave the Huang family a lot of trouble. Now that everything is over, we won't stay here for long. Seeing the Vermilion Bird Palace open, Su Mingyu, Xie Yujiang, and the others all stood up and cupped their hands. We'll thank fellow Taoist Xiao for the following banquet. We'll take our leave. Huang Tianle quickly stood up and said, Fellow Taoists, don't be anxious. It's midnight right now, and there's lightning and thunder. Why don't you wait until tomorrow? I'll arrange for the disciples to prepare a quiet room. Fellow Taoists, you can rest for a while. It won't be too late to leave tomorrow. No need. Su Mingyu and the others had just escaped from death and had the intention to leave. How could they dare to stay for a moment longer? Moreover, a thunderstorm like this was nothing to a foundation establishment cultivator. It was no different from a normal day. Fine, I'll send you all off. Huang Tianle understood their thoughts and said, Today, my Huang family indeed didn't receive you well. In the future, I'll bring my son to your sect to apologize. That's easy. Fellow Taoist Huang's body isn't well, so you should stay. If the Huang family needs anything in the future, please send us a message. Su Mingyu's words were clearly a refusal. They definitely wouldn't come to Tianmen Mountain again. After speaking, Su Mingyu and the others looked at each other and actually flew towards the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's 8 doors. It could be seen that their hearts were really full of fear. Sigh, really? Huang Tianle turned his head and looked. He didn't know who to send off, so he could only walk 2 steps and smile bitterly. At this time, a group of qi refinement cultivators and cultivators from other sects were also restless. They all stood up and wanted to bid farewell to Huang Tianle. Master, why are you? Just as everyone stood up, they heard a plop sound as they fell to the ground. Immediately after, a cry of surprise came from the west side of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. This voice also stopped abruptly and didn't even finish speaking. At the same time, this kind of cry of surprise sounded from all 4 sides of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. A series of plop sounds appeared. What's going on? Xiaohua was aghast. His divine sense swept over, and he saw that Su Mingyu and the other foundation building cultivators who flew out earlier had already fallen at the entrance of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Lying next to them were also a few aura refining disciples. Presumably, they were the ones who discovered their abnormal state and cried out in alarm. The remaining people surrounded the entrance of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. They looked at the seemingly normal entrance with extreme fear and looked at the curtain of rain that poured in from outside the entrance. Their bodies trembled slightly and they didn't dare to fly even half a step further. Which senior is outside? We only came to Tianmen Mountain to help the Huang family. We don't want to get involved in the grudges between the Huang family and the Lan family. Moreover, Lan Jingming was also killed by a cultivator called Xiaohua just now. We don't have any grudges with him anymore. Right now, we only want to return from Tianmen Mountain. Moreover, this junior swears that I won't take half a step within 100 miles of Tianmen Mountain. Zhao Fanling of the Zhao family took half a step forward and said very respectfully with a bow. Outside the entrance of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, there was nothing but raindrops that covered the sky and covered the earth. Although the walala sound didn't cover Zhao Fanling's voice, there wasn't any echo either. Since senior isn't willing to speak, then this junior will take it as senior's consent. Zhao Fanling's face was indescribably happy and worried. This junior is only a woman. I definitely won't say half a word about today's matter. I hope that senior will raise your hand and let this junior go. As she spoke, Zhao Fanling clapped her hands and took out a jade-like magic tool from her storage pouch. Under the activation of her magic power, a layer of purple luster was produced and completely covered Zhao Fanling. Zhao Fanling didn't dare to fly. She slowly stepped out with one foot. When she saw that there was no movement, she stepped out with the other foot, moving half a foot by half a foot. When she neared the entrance of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, it was precisely where Su Mingyu was lying. Zhao Fanling hesitated for a moment, then slightly stepped out with the tip of her foot. When she saw that there was no movement, she slowly, gently, and carefully moved her foot out again. At this time, There was still no movement. Senior. Junior, thanks, Senior. Zhao Fanling raised her head and shouted towards the pitch-black night sky. Gathering her courage, she passed through the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's entrance. However, at this moment, the instant Zhao Fanling passed through the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's entrance, a strange thing happened. Zhao Fanling's entire body slightly twitched, as if her entire essence, energy, and spirit had been sucked out by someone. Her body went limp and the luster of the magic tool in her hand suddenly extinguished. She laid down next to Su Mingyu. The group of cultivators with divine senses only needed to sweep a glance to understand that Zhao Fanling was no longer breathing. Ah? A few frightened screams sounded in the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Immediately, there was no more movement and it was deathly silent. Rumble. Right at this moment, a burst of thunder seemed to have struck the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. The surrounding scenery was brightly illuminated in an instant. In the night, the originally majestic artificial mountains and flowing treetops looked extremely strange at this moment. They were like night owls and also like ghosts. Xiao Hua's heart jumped. The Buddha Saraira faintly emitted threads of golden light, and even the phoenix Dharma body was slightly trembling. This heavenly thunder. I'm afraid it's not the sound of a normal thunderstorm. Xiao Hua, who had experienced the lightning tribulation, smelled something different from the heavenly thunder and slightly frowned. Fellow Taoists, don't be anxious, Huang Tianle hurriedly shouted. Although he told the others not to be anxious, his own face was also filled with panic. Moreover, his forehead was already covered in sweat. This night was truly strange. This person's death was truly inexplicable. Fellow Taoist Huang, what's going on? Xiao Hua's eyes were bright as he stared at Huang Tianle. Although the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall was abnormally warm, Xiao Hua felt a chill seeping out from his spine. Fellow Taoist Xiao, this old one really doesn't know. Huang Tianle vigorously shook his head. This old one has already lost his sense of propriety tonight. All of this really has nothing to do with this old one. Let this old one go over and take a look first. Afterwards, he walked forward a few steps and raised his voice. Where are the disciples on duty outside the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall? Why didn't anyone come over to report? Chapter 1947. Fellow Taoist Huang, there's no need to shout. Near your Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. I'm afraid there's no one left alive. Xiao Hua said quietly. His eyes were looking at the shining water threads outside the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. The sound of water flowing could be heard. What? Huang Tianle's face was pale. His body swayed and he almost fell. Huang Mingxiang quickly supported him. What's wrong? Fellow Taoist Huang. Xiao Hua said strangely. Sigh, my divine sense is gradually declining. Huang Tianle said with a bitter smile. Moreover, the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall seems to be covered by heavenly lightning. My divine sense can't penetrate it. Amen, Xiao Hua nodded. His divine sense had only managed to extend about 3 meters out of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall before it was blocked. His Buddhist sense, on the other hand, was barely able to extend 30 meters out. Presumably, with Huang Tianle's early-stage foundation establishment cultivation, he wouldn't even be able to extend his divine sense out of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Cough cough, I'll go take a look first. So many fellow Taoists have died. Huang Tianle actually coughed twice like a senile mortal elder. Grandfather, it's better if you don't go. You're old, your body. Huang Mingxiang advised in a low voice. Xiang Air, I'm just going to take a look. Huang Tianle said in a low voice. As the Huang family's patriarch, how can I not go? Come with this old man. Yes, grandfather. Huang Mingxiang replied in a low voice. Huang Mang and Yang Yu followed behind him. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and looked around. His Buddhist consciousness swept outside and then looked at the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Just now, when Zhao Fanling went out, his divine sense followed closely. He didn't find any magic power fluctuations at all, and Zhao Fanling fell to the ground. This was really beyond Xiao Hua's understanding. After thinking for a while, he didn't follow Huang Tianle. Instead, he walked to the table where Xue Xue and the others were. At this moment, there weren't many people in the center of the hall. All the cultivators were scattered around the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall in a circle, facing the 8 open doors of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Xue Xue looked calm, but Chang Yulian and Chang Xuemei were pale. Their lips were slightly black and trembling. The two of them huddled together and hid behind Xue Xue Xue. Chang Lihao and the other two clenched their fists. What? Are you scared? Xiao Hua also forcefully squeezed out a smile and asked. Senior brother Xiao. Chang Lihao's voice was trembling. Before all, I was afraid. After all, it was a clear opponent. I knew who it was. But for now, I can't see who it is. Several foundation building seniors have been killed without anyone knowing. There's not even the slightest sound. How can I not be afraid? If it weren't for senior brother Xiao, I'm afraid we would have left long ago. Perhaps we would have died at the entrance of the hall. Chang Limin echoed. Senior brother Xiao, it's all my fault. I didn't dare to be greedy and urged my brothers to come over. Chang Yulian said faintly. Chang Xuemei trembled even more. Little sister shouldn't have dragged senior brother and big sister into this. Otherwise, who knows where senior brother and big sister would be now? Why are you saying this now? Xiao Hua widened his eyes and scolded. How can cultivators of our generation have so much to be gentle about? What's done is done, don't have any thoughts of turning back. Thinking about the past and the future, in the end, it's all empty space. Chang Lihao's heart trembled. He nodded respectfully. Thank you for your reminder, senior brother. I understand. In an instant, the timidity in his eyes lessened by a bit. Although Chang Xuemei and Chang Yulian understood, female cultivators were born timid. They couldn't be enlightened in such a short time. Xiao Hua didn't say much. He looked at Xue Xue's clear eyes. There was a kind of fear, but it wasn't timidity. Instead, it was more of concern for him. Xiao Hua frowned slightly. He didn't think much of it before, but after several life and death situations, he saw Xue Xue so calm. Her state of mind was even more open-minded than his, as if she had thrown away life and death. How could he not be surprised? According to Xue Xue's cultivation, she shouldn't be like this. Could it be, in the fog mountain, Ling Jingyi said something to her? Xiao Hua pondered. Moreover, Xue Xue and Ling Jingyi didn't seem to mention anything about Xue Xue's parents. Xue Xue doesn't have the fire ape spirit blood in her bloodline. Instead, she has a thunder physique and is protected by that male thunder beast. Could this be the reason for Xue Xue's abnormal behavior? Ah? At this moment, cries of surprise came from the side of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's door. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, and he was even more shocked. Just now, after Zhao Fanling's rash attempt to survive in her strange death, no one dared to take half a step forward. They all surrounded the door and stared at it with terrifying gazes. At this moment, the area that seemed to be the edge of death actually shrunk. Several low-level cultivators that were closest to the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's door also seemed to have their vitality taken away. They silently lay on the ground. Many people were like headless flies as they rushed into the air. However, something even more shocking happened. The several people who had rushed into the air had only flown a few feet before they fell back down from the sky without making any sound. This time, no one dared to fly anymore. They just ran around the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall like mortals. Xiao Hua sighed. He hurriedly waved his hand and took out several dozen rabbit spirit talismans. Both of his hands continuously struck them out. In a short moment, he urged his magic power and a rabbit spirit formation was set up, protecting Xue Xue and the others within. Senior Xiao. Not far away, Yuchuan didn't dare to stray too far away from Xue Xue and the others. Even when there were people rushing to get out, he was still like this. Seeing Xiao Hua take out so many spirit talismans all of a sudden, his mouth had long since changed to senior, junior, Seeing Yuchuan use his finger to point at the spirit formation, Xiaohua pondered for a moment, then nodded. Since that's the case, Taoist you and the disciples can also come over. However, I can't guarantee that I'll really be able to protect everyone. It's good that you have this, Junior can't thank you enough. Yuchuan hurriedly walked into the range of the spirit formation, bowed and said, if we can escape alive today, Junior will definitely thank Senior Xiao. Let's talk about it after we escape. Xiaohua waved his hand, pointed at Shui and said, if possible, try your best to protect my junior sister. Of course. Yuchuan sat in front of Shui, as if he could really protect her. Darling Xiao, be careful. Shui faintly said. She knew that Xiaohua definitely wouldn't be like the other cultivators who only cared about their own safety. Because he was Xiaohua. Don't worry, Xiaohua nodded towards her. Everyone retreated about 3 meters, then stopped again. Huang Tianle also retreated with everyone under the support of Huang Mengxiang. However, he still seemed to be struggling, as if he wanted to go forward. Taoist Huang, Xiaohua walked to Huang Tianle's side, frowned and said, actually, I'm the same as Taoist Zhao Fanling. I really don't want to get involved in the grudges between the Huang clan and others. However, tonight, I've really been dragged into the water by Taoist Huang. Now that Taoist Su Mingyu and the other Taoists have died, the various sects that they belong to probably won't let this matter go. In my opinion, if Taoist Huang knows what's going on, it's better for you to have a good talk with the senior outside the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. As long as that senior isn't like Lan Jingming, insisting on taking our lives, we still have a chance to escape this calamity. Chapter 1948. Alas, fellow Taoist Xiao, Huang Tianle's face was almost devoid of color. At this moment, after hearing Xiaohua's reprimand, a trace of redness appeared on his face. He sighed and said, fellow Taoist Xiao, tonight, fellow Taoist has made a great contribution and is the great benefactor of my Tianmen Mountain. This old man won't hide anything from you. My Tianmen Mountain does indeed have many enemies. But since they haven't come looking for us for so many years, perhaps they were exterminated by my Huang clan, or perhaps they declined on their own. This matter of the Lan clan is absolutely beyond this old man's expectations. Other people? I really don't know of such powerful enemies. Senior Xiao, if my Huang clan's enemies had such powerful abilities, they would have already razed Tianmen Mountain to the ground. Why wait until today? Huang Mengxiang said without any trace of politeness. Moreover, this senior's abilities are so powerful, even more powerful than my Vermilion Bird Flame formation. Why do you need to be so sneaky? Just come out and destroy the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. We won't be able to survive, so why is everyone so scared? Just as they were talking, there was another wave of wailing and howling. A female cultivator in the middle of the crowd suddenly fell to the ground, similarly dying. This was great. Getting close to the palace gate was dangerous, but not getting close to the palace gate was also dangerous. It seemed like there was no safe place in the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. In the entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, a crowd of cultivators lost their heads out of fear and fled in disarray. No one knew where to hide. This scene was no different from the usual panicked crowd in the secular world. Clatter, clatter, clatter. A wave of trembling teeth due to fright rang out. Everyone near Xiaohua's left and right were trembling. A frightening aura pervaded the entire place, and even Xiaohua was no exception. A kind of fear that came from the bottom of his heart flowed along Xiaohua's blood and quickly spread throughout his entire body. A kind of coldness wrapped around Xiaohua's entire body. Damn it, which senior is this? Xiaohua could also be considered to have experienced countless life and death situations, but he had never felt so powerless. Another 2 screams rang out in succession. 2 cultivators collapsed, and the order in which they collapsed was actually facing Shui and the others. This is bad. Xiaohua didn't know whether his formation could block this strange death or not. He floated in front of the formation. Xiao. Shui couldn't help but call out. Shut up. Xiaohua shouted and locked his divine sense in front of him, hoping that he would discover something. However, after the time it took to brew a cup of tea, his divine sense was completely empty. Just as Xiaohua thought that the danger had passed, a sudden gust of cold wind gently blew towards Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua didn't hesitate at all and hurriedly retreated. Then he released his Buddhist sense again. As before, there was nothing abnormal in the place where Lung Feng was. Xiaohua stopped and his eyes quickly turned. With a slap of his hand, the cloud-suppressing seal flew out. A bronze brilliance sprinkled down from the top of Xiaohua's head, firmly protecting him. However, just as the cloud-suppressing seal was summoned, the cold wind blew again and actually went past the brilliance of the cloud-suppressing seal. What kind of divine ability is this? Xiaohua was greatly shocked. He hurriedly retreated, and without the slightest hesitation, he naturally shot out the fireball technique. With a rumbling sound, the area in front of Xiaohua's eyes was covered in flames. Xiaohua didn't withdraw his Buddhist sense. Just as the flames were burning, he suddenly discovered that there was a faintly swaying silhouette in the flames. However, this silhouette didn't seem to be afraid of the flames and disappeared in a flash. At this moment, not far from Xiaohua's side, another cultivator fell to the ground and no longer breathed. Rise. Xiaohua extended his hand and the Samadhi true fire emerged from his hand. Immediately after, a wall of fire surrounded him. Xiaohua flicked his hand again and a wisp of the Samadhi true fire flew towards the faintly discernible silhouette just now. A deep, strange sound like it came from the throat rang out. Immediately, a humanoid flame appeared from the Samadhi true fire and screamed. The group of female cultivators all screamed in fright. Ghost? Ghost. Of course, it couldn't be seen and could kill without a trace. If it wasn't a ghost, then what was it? Ghost? Although Xiaohua's heart trembled, since even ghosts were afraid of the Samadhi true fire, what was he afraid of? Therefore, Xiaohua didn't hesitate and hurriedly waved his hand again. Outside the rabbit spell formation, a wall of Samadhi true fire rose. Senior Xiao, save me. Senior Xiao, save me. When everyone saw that Xiaohua was actually able to use fire to kill ghosts, they all rushed toward Xiaohua. Many people even wanted to squeeze into the rabbit spell formation. But at the same time that everyone rushed in, a series of blood-curdling screams rang out again. Several cultivators fell under everyone's feet. It was unknown whether they were killed by ghosts or trampled to death. Seeing so many people rushing over, Xiaohua coldly snorted. His figure flew into the air and shouted, "All of you, stop. In this kind of panic, even this Xiao will be trampled to death by you. Who can save you? Fellow Taoists, don't panic. Such panic will only cause more people to die. It won't allow Senior Xiao to save you." At this time, Huang Mingxiang also flew into the air and shouted loudly, "All of you, sit down where you are and leave some space between yourselves. If fellow Taoists have any fireball talismans or the like, you can use them to protect yourselves first. Even if there are ghosts or the like, Senior Xiao will have time to kill them if there's a gap." When the cultivators heard Huang Mingxiang's reminder, they all came to a sudden realization and quickly sat down. One by one, they took out all the fire attribute yellow talismans they could use and used them to protect themselves. Then, they looked pitifully at Xiaohua. "Do you want to die? Hurry up and get down." Xiaohua said coldly. Huang Mingxiang didn't seem to be afraid of the others. His figure turned and landed beside Huang Tianle. He even smiled at Xiaohua. Xiaohua didn't have the time and didn't have the mood to do anything ambiguous with this little girl. He released his Buddhist sense and carefully examined, but obviously, although his Buddhist sense left, it couldn't do anything. A sound echoed. One of the female cultivators cried out in alarm. In front of her, a male cultivator with flames on his body silently lay down. "Go." Xiaohua didn't hesitate at all. He waved the Samadhi true fire in his hand and a slender line of fire flew over. However, before the line of fire flew near the male cultivator, it unexpectedly stopped. Then, as if something had been ignited, a silhouette that was half a head taller than an ordinary person appeared. It let out a hee-hee sound and continuously swayed within the Samadhi true fire. Go! Xiaohua waved his hand again. Another 4 lines of Samadhi true fire once again flew to the 4 sides where the male cultivator was just now. With a whoosh sound, as expected by Xiaohua, 3 of the lines of Samadhi true fire missed. The Samadhi true fire on the other side succeeded, igniting a ghost. However, a new situation appeared. This ghost seemed to be different from the previous ones. It could actually flutter rapidly. Although it painfully rolled on the ground, it still crashed into the cultivators sitting at the side. In merely a breath's time, several cultivators were affected. The Samadhi true fire was so powerful that when these cultivators touched it, their bodies immediately burned. Sigh. Xiaohua sighed. He flew to the left of these cultivators and reached out to extinguish the Samadhi true fire on their bodies. What should I do? Xiaohua was a little hesitant. These ghosts seemed to be different from the vengeful ghosts Xiaohua encountered in the flame forest swamp. His spiritual sense couldn't see them. But I wonder if the Buddha's Saraira can transcend? The Buddha's Saraira could be considered one of Xiaohua's secrets. At this moment, other than Han Zhu, no other cultivator knew about it. Although the Buddha's Saraira could succeed, the Buddhist sect and the Taoist sect had an inexplicable grudge. Although Xiaohua didn't know much about it, from Han Zhu's words, he could definitely predict the consequences of others discovering the Buddhist sect's divine ability. Therefore, unless it involved his own safety, he didn't plan to reveal it. In addition, Xiaohua forced the spirit-devouring cultivation technique from spirit husbandry sects Li Dongming in the flame forest swamp. However, it was obvious that the spirit-devouring cultivation technique he obtained was the most basic one. Moreover, Xiaohua didn't have time to comprehend it. Even if he wanted to use it now, he couldn't. I can't see these ghosts. If I can see them, then the Samadhi true fire can be used. Xiaohua frowned. Suddenly, the Samadhi true fire on Xiaohua's body flickered slightly, showing signs of being extinguished. Oh my God, there are ghosts that aren't afraid of the Samadhi true fire? Xiaohua was shocked and hurriedly dodged. At the same time, he opened his left hand slightly. He wasn't sure if the delirium dharma eye that could see spiritual energy could see ghosts that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. As the saying goes, the ignorant are fearless. Before Xiaohua saw the ghosts, although he was afraid, he didn't have a creepy feeling. However, when he opened his delirium dharma eye and saw the ghosts, an extremely absurd feeling, as if he had arrived at the Yellow Springs, rushed into his heart. He saw that the ghosts in the delirium dharma eye were light green smoke. They were humanoid. However, some of these humanoid figures were missing arms and legs. Some of them were missing heads and legs. There were even some that didn't have any limbs and were just floating in the air. Not only on the ground, even in the air, there was a lot of light fog flying left and right. The entire Vermilion Bird Palace Hall was a place where demons were dancing. Damn it, what's going on? Xiaohua was extremely shocked. Suddenly, he thought of the words of Lan Jingming, who was just killed. Today is officially the 15th day of the 7th month. If you all die, then turn into malicious spirits. The 15th day of the 7th month? Is it the Ghost Festival? As Xiaohua was thinking, he once again heard a series of thunderclaps rumbling outside the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Several dazzling purple lights dazzled his illusion breaker eye, and the ghosts that were slowly pouring into the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall all turned into white mist and disappeared without a trace. Could it be because the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall is a fire-type array? These ghosts entered the palace hall to avoid the lightning tribulation? While Xiaohua was thinking, his hands and feet were not dissatisfied. His left hand was placed on his waist, pretending to move. The flames of the Samadhi true fire in his right hand were like heavenly maidens scattering flowers. Every time a flower fell, a ghost would be ignited. However, correspondingly, Xiaohua was also extremely busy. Many cultivators were affected by the Samadhi true fire of the ghosts. Xiaohua couldn't sit and watch. Moreover, It seemed that only he could control the Samadhi true fire. If he didn't take action, who could? I'll help you. Just as Xiao Hua was flustered, a voice sounded. Chapter 1949. Xiao Hua raised his head and looked over. It was Huang Mingxiang. Huang Mingxiang's figure flew over like a nimble butterfly, fluttering in front of everyone's eyes. Huang Mingxiang's left hand was waving a wisp of slightly thin true Samadhi fire, but her right hand was waving on some cultivators who had true Samadhi fire on their bodies. After waving a few times, the true Samadhi fire on the cultivators' bodies were all extinguished. Great! Xiao Hua came to a realization. This Tianmen Mountain's Huang family probably has the true bloodline of the vermilion bird. Huang Mingxiang is the Huang family's daughter of the first wife and also has outstanding aptitude. Being able to learn true Samadhi fire is not considered strange. But how can Huang Mingxiang casually extinguish true Samadhi fire of Xiao Hua? Every time, she has to wave several techniques to extinguish a wisp of true Samadhi fire. But even so, Xiao Hua can be considered to have obtained assistance. His thoughts on extinguishing the fire were greatly reduced, and he concentrated on killing the hesitating ghosts in the main hall. Just like this, in the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, the wandering ghosts among the cultivators were almost completely eliminated. Even though there were no more cultivators whose lives were taken by the ghosts, Xiao Hua's expression did not appear relaxed. After all, in this short period of time, Huang Mingxiang's face already appeared crimson. Clearly, it was because her magic power was insufficient. And from what he saw with his Dharma eye, outside of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's door, there were still many ghosts slowly swimming in. If I were to set up the true Samadhi fire around the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, I would be able to stop the ghosts from invading. However, this is not a long-term solution. My powers are limited after all. These ghosts seem to be inexhaustible. I have to find the reason. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and rubbed his hands. A dozen wisps of true Samadhi fire flew out again, igniting the ghosts closest to the cultivators in the main hall. Afterwards, his figure flew and pounced towards the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's door. His right hand raised again and a firewall technique was cast. Soon after, he waved left and right. Following Xiao Hua's gesture, the firewall technique quickly spread along the four walls of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Without waiting for the two firewalls to meet, Xiao Hua raised his left and right hands again. 3 wisps of true Samadhi fire simultaneously appeared in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall and also started to spread along the walls of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Xiao Hua's method was quite effective. Although the wall of fire couldn't stop the ghosts, after the true Samadhi fire appeared, all the ghosts that rushed into the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall were ignited by the true Samadhi fire. They could no longer approach the cultivators sitting in the center of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Alas, it's still a temporary measure. Xiao Hua looked at the Samadhi true fire that was dimming with every ghost that was ignited. He sighed and flew into the air above the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. At this time, all the ghosts in the air were killed by Xiao Hua, so it could be considered safe. Seeing that Huang Mingxiang was still extinguishing the true Samadhi flames, Xiao Hua pinched his chin and looked at the cultivators below him. After a moment, Xiao Hua's eyes lit up and he secretly opened his magic eyes. Among the many cultivators, he saw a cultivator whose body was faintly green in color, similar to that of a ghost, appear within Xiao Hua's magic eyes. It's him! Xiao Hua's phoenix eyes slightly narrowed. He pretended to carelessly pass by that short cultivator who looked like he was only around 10th layer Qi disciple. With a wave of his left and right hand, several streams of true Samadhi fire flew down together, charging towards that male cultivator whose face was pale and whose eyes were slightly sunken. Haha, that male cultivator's face was originally filled with panic, but when he saw Xiao Hua's several streams of true Samadhi flames rushing towards him, his face revealed astonishment. Immediately after, he laughed loudly. His figure swayed strangely for a while, using some unknown spell. Not only did he dodge the true Samadhi flames, His own figure also flew into the air. Ah! Xiaohua was slightly shocked, because from what he saw with his magic eyes, a light green smoke floated up from the male cultivator's body, similar to the color of ghosts. Moreover, there wasn't any normal fluctuation of mana. The cultivators next to the male cultivator were also shocked. They didn't think that the culprit was hiding next to them. They all couldn't help but dodge in all directions. Xiaohua, you really are strong. Not only is your mana profound, you also have insight. That male cultivator saw that he was exposed and no longer hid. His body stood in the air and said with a smile, "Are you really a guest of Mo Yun village?" Insight? Hearing this, Xiaohua slightly clenched his left hand and said coldly, "This Xiao is naturally a guest of Mo Yun village. Of course, this young master is also a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. What? Are you scared of this young master?" Xiaohua didn't dare to lead the calamity to Mo Yun village and clearly stated his identity. Imperial Thunder sect? Then no wonder. That cultivator had a face of realization. It's not strange for the Imperial Thunder sect to have a foundation establishment cultivator like you who can control true Samadhi fire. Imperial Thunder sect disciple? Huang Tianla also had a face of realization and Huang Mingxiang's eyes flickered. As for saying this lord is scared of you, hee, you think too highly of yourself. That cultivator laughed again and said, "You're only a foundation establishment cultivator, this lord doesn't put you in my eyes." This lord? For you. Xiaohua berated like spring thunder, "Many cultivators have no enmity with you, why did you order ghosts to come and massacre them? Who is this lord? Hee, how could a little foundation establishment cultivator like you know?" That cultivator said with a strange smile, but then calmly said, "If you want to know this lord's identity, then this lord will tell you how you saw through this lord." Obviously, this cultivator was the same as Lan Jingming, very confident in his concealment. He didn't think that he would be seen through by Xiaohua while hiding on the side. "Why are you so curious about Lan Jingming's question just now?" Xiaohua ridiculed. "Do you think that your actions are flawless and others shouldn't be able to see through it? Could it be that you are the person behind Lan Jingming?" Don't compare this lord with that brat surnamed Lan." The cultivator waved his hand and said disdainfully, "He is just a jumping clown, he actually has the same idea as this lord. Hee, this lord didn't want to make a move, I wanted to wait for him to exterminate the Huang family, then this lord would take his life. Who would have thought that a distraction would appear? What grievances do you have with the Huang family of Tianmen Mountain?" Xiaohua asked. "This isn't something that a little foundation establishment cultivator like you can care about." The cultivator waved his hand. "How about you first tell me how you found out about this lord?" "Should I tell you?" Xiaohua asked thoughtfully. "Of course, as long as you tell me, this lord will also tell you some things that you want to know." "Sigh, it's actually very simple." Xiaohua extended a finger and shook it slightly. "If this Xiao tells you, you may not necessarily believe it." "Are you stalling for time?" The cultivator asked curiously. "I have never heard of an Imperial Thunder sect disciple being so long-winded. If you don't say it, how do you know this lord won't believe you?" Hee, this Xiao has already used the poison of the green python to detoxify all the cultivators in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. They also gave me their spirit stones, yellow talismans, pills and other things as rewards. Only you didn't give anything. You say this Xiao doesn't remember you? How can I not suspect you? That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.